Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the February 18th Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors meeting. Supervisor Campbell, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, oral communication. This is that time in our agenda where the public may speak on any item not on the printed agenda. No action will be taken by the board. Can I see a show of hands of how many folks would like to speak under oral communication? Okay, let's hold the comments to 3 minutes, please, and join us at the podium.
Thank you for the opportunity, Supervisors. I came before this board during the January 21st meeting to comment along with other members of the public in support of cannabis industries in general and a Hazy Bulldog Farm specifically. Unfortunately, we were subjected to the spectacle of Supervisor Kirk getting up from his seat to make comments at the public comment podium. Not only was this inappropriate, it was deeply disrespectful. The comment period is our opportunity to address this board. You get plenty of time to make your point known from your seat. I remind Supervisor Kirk that the only requirement is to sit there. You don't actually have to listen. You can do crossword puzzles for all that matter, but you should be respectful. As insulting as Office Supervisor Kirk's actions were, a sitting board member does not become a member of the public simply by leaving his seat. His actions constituted deliberations by a sitting board member of an item not on the agenda, a serious Brown Act violation. Furthermore, he made his deliberations in a way that no other board member could possibly respond without adding to the circus, making his violation even more egregious. I'm requesting this board refer Supervisor Kirk's action to the District Attorney's Office to review his actions for compliance with the requirements of his official office. I would think a stern talking to is at least warranted. Now, I would like to discuss a specific item Supervisor Kirk stated. There were $9 of cost for every dollar of revenue. Harborside has generated well over $10 million in tax revenue for Oakland over the last 15 years, and Oakland seems quite happy to have them. It would be stupendously dumb for Oakland to allow Harborside to keep operating if they were actually incurring $90 million of cost. But Oakland isn't dumb. What is dumb is believing that Oakland or any other community would actually continue incurring those costs in such a fashion. But you know, if you look on the internet long enough, you can find something that can back your opinion. But if you rely on hack-job studies from competing industries like alcohol and tobacco, who fund their studies because they are afraid of cannabis cutting into their customer base, you might want to consider that both alcohol and tobacco have been well documented in directly causing millions of deaths, and yet not a single death has been documented as directly caused by cannabis. Cutting into the market share of alcohol and tobacco by cannabis actually sounds like a net win for society to me. There is a well-known disease, though, that is well documented as a cause of all sorts of public ills. It's a disease that is afflicting communities all over this country. Its symptoms include crumbling infrastructure, loss of services, increasing crime in general, and heavy drug use like opioids and meth in particular. It's a disease that's especially virulent in communities that have lost their original economic drives, like the manufacturing plants closing down or the mines shutting down. It's a disease that Tuolumne County is all too familiar with. That disease is the lack of economic development. Leadership isn't experience. Leadership isn't about pontificating about imaginary problems that people aren't experiencing. Leadership isn't about saying no because it's easier than coming up with real solutions. You can't be a leader without having concrete plans, and the courage to take some chances. And you can't fix the problems without addressing the cause. Let me ask this board, what would you do if there was another large gold strike discovered here? Certainly the first gold rush brought with it a lot of crime, but it also brought with it what is today Tuolumne County. A little kind around the edges, but not so bad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dear Supervisors, my name is Michael Barrett, and I live in Sierra Village. I've been a pest control business owner here in Tuolumne County for 29 years. As a business owner, I can understand why Hazy Bulldog Farms would like to vertically integrate their business. I'd love to be able to manufacture my own pesticides and save on product costs, and in so doing, increase my profit margin. With other products that are grown in California for human consumption, we have the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the California Department of Food and Agriculture to protect the consumer. What are these agencies doing to assure the purity of marijuana grown and sold in California? I believe it's too early to allow unregulated and unsecured commercial grows in our county. What does the state health agencies have to say regarding the smoking of marijuana for recreational use, let alone medicinal use? Back in the 60s and 70s, I remember on the back of a pack of cigarettes it said, "Caution, cigarette smoking may be hazardous to your health." Now it's graphically dangerous, according to the Surgeon General. Did you know that danger on a label designates a toxicity level 100 to 1,000 times more toxic than a caution label? They were wrong then, right? What's going on with vaping? 5 years ago, it seemed pretty benign. Now I'm hearing and seeing major health problems in the news. When marijuana is burnt and inhaled, its chemical composition changes. What's its toxicity level when smoked? I'd sure hate to see marijuana become readily available to any one of my 9 grandchildren in the days ahead. I know I speak for many of my friends and neighbors, and that we as a community need to do everything possible to restrict the availability of this gateway drug. Please continue to opt out of allowing commercial cultivation and additional dispensaries of marijuana for sale in our great county. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, if you could be so kind as to line up if you want to speak under public comment so that we can keep this moving along.
I'd like to request that I get to speak for a couple extra minutes. Either that, we're just going to break it up between the two of us.
I believe that I have to hold it to 3 minutes by,
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, good morning. Hello, I wanted to quickly start off today by clearing up some of the bad information given at the last meeting by Mr. Kirk regarding cannabis. Mr. Kirk claimed that cannabis sales in states are going down, led by Colorado. Well, the actual numbers are in. Colorado's state numbers are higher than expected. $1.72 billion in sales, around $30 million more than expected. Denver saw a $7.7 million increase in sales, up to 22%. New growth for the 6th straight year, breaking their all-time sales record in 2018, making growth a 10% rate, making cannabis the fastest growing industry in Colorado for 6 straight years. This is slowing down. Mr. Kirk also made the claim that cannabis will cost the taxpayer 10 times more than they will receive in taxes. He made this claim with 3 studies. One study that predicted the potential impact of cannabis legalization in Kentucky in 2018. The other 2 studies were not even about cannabis. They were about alcohol and tobacco. Why didn't you use the real numbers out of California that are available for everybody to see? Well, once again, the numbers are in. $140.8 million for 11,000 low-income children, $44.8 million to policies and fire departments. Police and fire departments, $39.9 million to combat illegal grows, $37.5 million for at-risk youth, $30 million reinvestment grants for social workers, $21.8 million for safer roads, $57.8 million to license and regulate the industry. $15 million for cannabis science and policy research, $100 million in local cannabis taxes to parks annually. Some of these figures are a difference of 20-fold from what Mr. Kirk claimed to be true. 20-fold from what Mr. Kirk claimed to be true. So how irresponsible of Mr. Kirk to misrepresent the facts to this county, and at what cost? At the last county meeting, Mr. Kirk put a group of people together that was so misled that they drove the conversation to several very dark places. Several things they kept straight was they didn't want cannabis farms on every corner. This is very misleading because nobody in the cannabis industry has been fighting for putting farms on every corner. In fact, we want to move the commercial farms to the industrial agricultural area away from houses, which will bring funding to the local police so they can stop farms popping up in local neighborhoods. Currently, there is no money being spent on cannabis enforcement, with 0 arrests. Another misleading thing the group decided to say over and over was, players like me, and some even said me, push illegal product out the back door. It amazes me that groups of churchgoers can make such judgment about a person all in
Thank
front
you.
of my kids.
It amazes me that a group of churchgoers can make these assumptions all in front of me, or about me, in front of my kids, while they're in the same room. This council just let it happen over and over. What did I do to deserve this? What do I do to defend against this? And lastly, where do I go to get my reputation back? Possibly the most disturbing part of all this is that after I spoke at the last county meeting, I stood at the exit and listened to the remaining people speak. During this time, David Peters insulted my daughter and I, then stood behind me and breathed extra heavy on the back of my neck trying to instigate me. Is this the type of people you stand by, Anaya? Is this the type of group you try to get together? I thought cannabis were supposed to be the thugs. During the last 3 years, I've had my neighbors wrongly report me to different government agencies, and I was forced to prove my innocence. I've had my neighbors threaten to call CPS and take my children. Another time I was forced to prove my innocence. I want to remind this council that we have safeguards in this county constitution. It clearly states in the Right to Farm Act how the community should react in these situations and how it clearly states the farmer has the rights in this community. As for cannabis, we have now voted 3 times. Yes for Proposition 215. Yes for Proposition 64. Yes for Measure M with 64% approval. It's a 28% spread. This is the exact reason for the Right to Farm bill, is to take away land disputes and land usage disputes. It's time to honor the original intent of this county, or we need to vote to change it. What Anaya has done, which is misleading the public and inaccurate predictions of the cannabis industry, can't be the way we approach this potential industry and how we can help this county. That should not be allowed. Instead, I propose this council puts their trust in cannabis companies despite the hellfire being sped at them that will stand up and persevere. A cannabis company that can hold culture of their community as a top priority to maintain. My name is Jeff Musio, owner and operator of Hazy Bulldog Farms. I stand before you to once again ask for the opportunity to open cannabis operations in your county. When doing this, I can only promise you a few things. I promise you I will sleep, sweat, grind, and repeat over and over until my dreams become a reality. I will outwork, I will outperform, I will outstrategize, I will outlast my competitors. And while doing this, I'll ask myself 3 questions. Is this good for my family? Is this good for the community? And is this good for my business? If the answer to any of those questions is no, I do not go forward. I care about this community. I care about my business, and I care about my family. Let me do the impossible. Let me bring jobs and prosperity to this community. Responsibly, the right way. Let me bring hope that these families need. Thank you. One last thing. We opened up a job application for one position for a bud tender, our lowest paying position. We have over 250 applications. Hear the cry from the community. Hear it. We have hundreds of signatures, hundreds of people that come in here, hundreds of people lining up for jobs, hundreds of opportunities. Hear it. It's ringing loud and clear. I encourage this council this week to go see Ms. Riggs. Ask her to put cannabis back on the agenda and stop giving me 2 minutes to plead my case. Thank you very much.
Bob Kirk, Mewick Village. Cannabis proponents like to refer to Proposition 64 and Measure M as proof that Tuolumne County voters want commercial cultivation and marijuana dispensaries. I'm sure some people believe that, but it's actually quite a leap of faith. Proposition 64 was sold to the electorate as a way to decriminalize possession of small amounts of marijuana. It very clearly did not allow for commercial cultivation and dispensaries, otherwise we would already have such businesses across the state. Instead, Prop 64 left it up to local jurisdictions to decide. So far, nearly 3/4 of local jurisdictions in California have commercial bans in place. Recently, the high-tech Silicon Valley cities of Morgan Hill and Santa Clara have opted out. Why would these communities ban commercial activities? What do they know? Measure M was clearly only about taxing commercial marijuana should it somehow become permitted. The argument in favor of Measure M stated in the very first sentence in bold type, a yes vote on Measure M does not allow marijuana businesses in our county. That was in bold. Most people I've talked to who voted for Measure M say something like, I don't want commercial marijuana, But if we have it, let's tax the HELL out of it. You can imagine that if we somehow allow it, people will demand the full 15% tax be levied. This will raise prices, hurt profit margins, and further drive the black market. If you decided to resist the black market by taxing legal operations at 0%, then there would be no tax revenue. A lose-lose proposition either way. I say let's continue to opt out of commercial marijuana and keep Tuolumne County a family-friendly community. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm the County Superintendent of Schools, Kathy Parker. I came here to, first of all, thank Anaya Kirk and Ryan Campbell for being active partners with us on the First Five Commission and also the YES Partnership. I also wanted to inform the board that the Smile Keepers, a school-based dental screening, education, and referral program, has been expanded in the juvenile detention facility due to a generous donation of $4,000 from the Hidden Treasures nonprofit agency, which is designed to provide services for youth that are in that facility, along with a match from Sonora Area Foundation. So through that wonderful funding, we're going to be able to provide some additional dental screening support services for students that might not otherwise have access to those services. Currently, we're averaging about 20 students a day, and that will probably continue definitely through the end of the month. I also wanted to inform the board that we are actively reaching out to Tuolumne County residents to participate in the census. We have received a small grant from California Complete Count, and so we will serve as a questionnaire assistance kiosk, and we'll have stations set up so that we can make sure that everybody in Tuolumne County is counted. It's very important for school districts to have that count, as many of our funding sources are related to that. And finally, I wanted to extend an invitation on behalf of the board president, the County Board of Education President, Don Raleigh, to any of our County Board of Education meetings. I've heard that there's been an expression of interest in attending that, and our next one is March 9th at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're past 15 minutes. Do you need to get consent?
Do I have consensus to extend public comment? Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to address the issue of the county's personnel policies. When I did some research, I found that they're from 1997, which makes them at least 23 years old. And I understand they're being updated, but I'm particularly concerned about one topic that I would like addressed now, and that is a zero tolerance for bullying with county employees, elected officials, and appointees. And I'm specifically concerned, which I believe I've talked to at least 3 people in county counsel's office, 3 people in the CAO's office, 3 people in human resources, as well as most of you, about the conduct of a political appointee in the open and public forum. And I find it very disturbing to see continuous behavior that, to me, constitutes bullying not only of the other committee members, also the staff, as well as representatives of the public. And I'm a pretty experienced going to public meeting person. I've been doing it since 2006. And I've reached the point where I'm afraid now to go to these particular committee meetings. And I don't think as a member of the public, I should be afraid to attend a meeting. So I'm sorry that I've been put in this position to make a public statement about this, because the appointer is determined to keep this person in the position that they're in. But this person is disruptive, is not helping the business of this particular committee, and I believe something needs to be done about this political appointee, and I'm asking it to be put on the agenda in the future as an action item. and elected officials and political appointees. Behavior must be discussed in the open and public forum. It cannot be a closed session item. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to staff reports. And again, the staff may present public service announcements, commendations of staff, and brief project updates. No action may be taken by the board.
Good morning, Board. Just a reminder that the Central Sierra Broadband Conference is tomorrow. It's 12 to 4. There will be two of you at a pre-conference meeting to talk about broadband agendas. We are expecting a full room, which is about 150. There is no seating preference, so come as you are, and we'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Murphy, Assistant Fire Chief for County Fire. And I just want to do a brief report update of the report that I sent out previously. The County Fire had 487 incidents within its jurisdiction in January, 6.4% increase from the year before, and about average with the 5-year average for the month of January. In the month of January, there were 364 medical calls, 26 fires, 16 hazardous materials or firemen on standby, which could be like power lines down or something like that, and 81 other incidents. Also, towards the end of the year, we received this print of a mural that was done in Sonoma County, and it will be presented to the board to hang wherever is appropriate. I was speaking with Alicia earlier, and I just wanted to go over a note that they sent with it. This is presented by a group of students from Bay Art Academy. They said, "We are a group of teen artists from Bay Art Academy in Sonoma County. We were very recently affected by the Kincaid fire, but thanks to the work of firefighters like you, our homes were saved. We want to show our appreciation for your acts of bravery. So a total of 17 of us gathered to create a large painting portraying the way the firefighters saved our community." I believe it was 11 by 17 feet was the size of this. "We understand that firefighters from this station assisted us during these times, and to show our gratitude, we wanted to gift you a print of our painting. Thanks to many weeks of fundraising and donations, the students were able to send a print of their painting to all 506 fire agencies that responded to the Kincaid fire. In their closing words, the students wrote, 'We hope our painting will remind you every day how grateful we all are for your continuous hard work and bravery.'" And we sent County Fire sent an engine with volunteers to the fire for 12 days, and our mechanic was also down there for the same amount of time. So,
Great job. Thank you, and thank you for sharing that.
So, Madam Chair asked me to introduce our new commander of the Highway Patrol. So if Lieutenant Destiny Tafoya would please stand and let everybody see who she is. Do you have anything you want to say to us? Not necessary, but come on up if you want. I get all the jobs of embarrassing people.
Well, thank you very much. I reported up here a few months ago, and it's been very nice. I grew up in Colorado, so this is like home for me. It reminds me of where I grew up. Everybody has been very welcoming, and I really appreciate. I've been communicating with a couple of you about issues in your districts, and I'm open to anything that you guys have going on and keeping our public safe. So, thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for attending our meeting. Okay. All right. No additional staff reports. Will the clerk please read the consent calendar?
Minutes of the meeting held February 4th, February 5th, February 6th, 2020. Approving the budget for the Homeless Advocacy and Outreach Cost Center. approving the notice of completion for the taxi line reconstruction rehabilitation at Columbia Airport under Federal Aviation Administration grant, approving the change of a class specification for a health officer, adopting a resolution rescinding resolution number 236-72 and renaming the Human Services Agency and to the Health and Human Services Agency. Adopting a resolution accepting the funding from the California Department of Public Health to implement expanded communicable disease surveillance and monitoring, data collection, disease prevention activities, and recognizing unanticipated revenue in the amount of $10,000 and increase appropriations in the same amount in the public health budget. Accepting the resignation of Terry Easley from the Behavioral Health Advisory Board and Michelle Fuentes from the Area 12 Agency on Aging Advisory Council, and directing the clerk to post notice of vacancies and send letters of appreciation. Recognizing the passing of Dorothy Waino and directing the clerk to post a notice of vacancy for the Carter Cemetery District, and approving the reappointment of John Schultz to the Columbia Cemetery District and Wynn Steer to the Oak Grove Cemetery Districts.
Does any board member would like to pull an item, or do they have a comment on an item?
No pull, but I just want to make a comment on number 9, recognizing Dorothy Weno, her passing. She served the cemetery district there in Tuolumne, so just my condolences to her and her family.
And I would echo that comment that we actually have 5 items on our agenda, on the consent calendar, where we are recognizing individuals that have contributed to our county, and we know how very important our volunteers are. With that, is there any public comment on the consent?
I would just like to say something about Terry Easley on the Mental Health Advisory Board. I believe she's been on there for at least 20 years, if not longer. I think she's probably the longest serving member that I've seen on that board. So a shout out to her.
Any other public comment? All right, I'm bringing this back for an action.
Madam Chairwoman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Supervisor Campbell, a second by Supervisor Gray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries by vote. Will the clerk please read item 12?
Actually, we're going to recess as the board. Recess as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene.
Thank you for the reminder. We will recess as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the TPPA.
And number 12 is consideration of approving the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians as TPPA Tier 2 member, recognizing one-time unanticipated revenue in the amount of $15,340.22 into dues and memberships line item and increase appropriations by the same amount.
All right.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Liz Peterson with County Administrator's Office, and here today also in my capacity representing the Tuolumne Public Power Agency. I am pleased to be here to request your board approve the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians as our newest member of the Tuolumne Public Power Agency. They would be a Tier 2 member according to the TPPA rules and regulations. Just for a little reminder here, because we don't talk often about TPPA, but just for your board and the public's awareness, TPPA was established as a result of the New Maloney's Dam construction as mitigation for the loss of taxable land in Calaveras and Tuolumne counties. So Calaveras also has a public power agency similar to how TPPA operates. The Flood Control Act of 1962 allocates 25% of the power generated from the New Maloney's Dam to Tuolumne and Calaveras counties. The power is available to the county and other local public agencies to help offset the loss of property tax revenue. The TPPA power rate, because we pay essentially bare bones costs just to receive the power from the federal dam. The Maloney's is a federally owned dam. And then we pay PG&E to utilize their distribution lines. And then we pay Cal ISO to schedule the power to make sure it's available when we need it. Those are the main costs that we pay, and then some administrative costs to run the program. So as a result, TPPA power is around 60 to 70% lower than PG&E rates. It fluctuates per year based on those costs that I mentioned, but it's generally significantly lower than PG&E. And as you can see in the staff memo, TPPA currently has 32 Tier 1 members and 1 Tier 2 member. The other Tier 2 member is the Chicken Ranch Rancheria of Miwok Indians of California. They became a member last year. So the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians has applied to become a member of TPPA. According to the TPPA Joint Powers Agreement, new TPPA members must be approved by you all, the Board of Directors. Additionally, as I mentioned, currently in our rules and regulations, federally recognized tribes are eligible for TPPA, but as Tier 2 members. And as you recall, like I mentioned, Chicken Ranch Rancheria became a Tier 2 member in April of last year. The TPPA rules and regulations describe the two main differences between Tier 1 and Tier 2. First is that Tier 1 members take priority over Tier 2 members for power consumption in the event that the power allocation is ever completely exhausted. Right now, with all of our members who share the power that's generated from Maloney's, so that's TPPA, CPPA, and the Sierra Conservation Center, we use about 67% of the power allocation. And then secondly, Tier 2 members pay a rate of 3 cents per kilowatt more than Tier 1 members, and that's to account for some additional administrative costs. So just as a reminder, for fiscal 1920, your board set the rate at 8.45 cents per kilowatt hour, and so the Tier 2 rate would be 11.45 cents. So when your board approved, just again as a reminder, when your board approved the Chicken Ranch Rancheria of Miwok Indians as a TIPA member last year, you also expressed interest in making changes to that Tier 1, Tier 2 policy to bring everybody up to kind of the same level. It is still our intention to do that, and our hope is to move forward with those changes and bring those to your board later this year for action. So the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians is a public agency and has been approved as a qualifying public agency and preference customer both by Western Area Power Administration, who gives us our power from the federal dam, as well as PG&E. The Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians will be, as I mentioned, TIPA's second Tier 2 member. Their consumption is expected to be 2,276,805 kilowatt hours annually. Of course, that always varies, but and then they would be about our 5th highest energy user as a TIPA member. So again, today I'm asking that your board approve them approve the Tuolumne Band of Miwok Indians as a Tier 2 TIPA member, and then accept the unanticipated revenue, this is dues that they're required to pay, of $15,340.22, and then increase appropriations by that same amount.
Are there any questions for staff?
No, just to comment, the backup material was very good, easy to understand. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Is there any public comment? Okay, I'm going to bring this back to the board.
Madam Chair, I move on staff recommendation.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Supervisor Rotifer, a second from Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Will the clerk please read item 13? Oh, excuse me, I need to reconvene. I need to convene as the TPPA and reconvene as the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors. Will the clerk please read item 13?
Number 15 or 13? Number 13?
Number 13.
Okay, presentation of the Innovation and Business Assistance Second Quarter Report.
Mr. Presbla. Mr. Presbla.
Just getting the screen turned on. Apologize. I don't know how to turn that on. I'll get started as we're talking. The first few slides are very simple, so I can start talking as it's loading in. But let me just turn it on. So today is my 6-month board presentation as this loads in. It's a presentation that's a culmination of chats with the community in each of the different districts. It's chats with business leaders, community members, and your board, and some people that have some interest in what it is that this future department holds. This should be going up. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the drive. I apologize, board. Liz, do you know how to? Oh, Liz isn't here. I'm just trying to find the drive.
Madam Chair.
Roger's right
if
behind
you'd
you
like.
Roger, the drive, just the drive. Yeah, it's on a stick.
Is it on a stick?
Yeah. I'm usually an Apple person, so this transition to PCs is really messing with me. Yeah, there it is. Thank you for the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Roger.
Good to have the IT director in the building, huh?
Absolutely.
So the purpose of today's presentation now is not a culmination of what I've been doing, but now more of let's look forward. What's the next 6 months to a year? What it is that this department should be doing. And so let me load that up. And so just as a reminder, the 3 pillars that are associated with an economic development department are business retention, business expansion, and attraction. And now business retention is making sure we help keep businesses in town. Expanding is helping businesses in town expand. And then also attraction is the idea of attracting businesses that are out of our community and having them join us. And so as we kind of started this process, we were thinking about let's make sure that all of the businesses in Tuolumne County really understand what this innovation and business department can be for them and make sure they understand the resources that are available. And so as I was kind of going through this process, I found out that really Tuolumne County has a fairly strong business organization community that already is helping each other. And so I found this graphic. I actually got it from the HBO training that we were at last week that you're going to hear about later. And it really kind of finally put it in my head of what it is I was trying to explain is that Tuolumne County has a thriving business community, which is that river. And we have organizations like the Motherlode Job Training, the Small Business Development Center, chambers, business organizations that are really there and built to be that kind of retention and expansion partner. And so what I felt like I was doing is I was taking water out of the river, really kind of figuring out how I can hold that business's hand and then putting them back in the river. So really what I want to make sure that I explain to the community and your board as I go forward with the rest of the presentation is that instead of me making sure that I'm that one for the business that's really holding their hand through this idea of business retention and expansion, that now really what I should be doing is just that facilitation, making sure that they understand what Motherlode Job Training is for them, making sure they understand what Small Business Development Center is, and then having a priority of which businesses it is that I really hold their hand through the process or pass off, so that I'm making sure that I'm not just using my time wisely, but your time wisely and our community's time wisely. And so with that, it kind of leaves this idea of expansion or attraction. And I really think that's where we can get a good return on our investment on this kind of idea of innovation and business and assistance. And so this idea of attraction is, where do we start? Do you start with the people or do you start with the business? And it's kind of like the idea of the chicken and the egg. But after a lot of conversation with business owners and, again, your constituents, they and I believe that as a county department, we should be focusing on the businesses, right? So as we attract businesses, the people will follow the jobs. And so that's where this is kind of headed. And so the next thing is, how do businesses choose communities? And so there are a couple different requirements. These are just a few that I think are really the strong ones, like population requirements, workforce requirements, meaning what are the demographics? Are you a younger community? Are you an older community? How many are educated? Quality of life, this one's much more subjective and kind of based on per person, but we definitely feel like we have some good quality of life in our community, right? Utility and access, this is literally meaning what kind of power supply do you have? Do you have natural gas? Do you have propane? Do you have electricity? And then access meaning, how do we get goods in and out of your community? And then finally, traffic flow. Those are really ones that are very interested in tourism, so hospitality, recreational type of businesses. And they want to know how many cars are going by. And so those are some of the way businesses choose. Now, the problem is algorithmic business decisions and shareholder value. These two combined, when you start to think of corporations, they're not making decisions before coming to the community, or they are making decisions before ever coming to the community. They look at those demographics, they look at maps, they look at all those traffic flows, and they put all that data together, and before they even make any thought, they just go off of that algorithmic decision. And that's based on time, based on how many decisions there are. And this idea of shareholder value, I think of like death by committee. They're never going to make any decisions very fast, right? And so with that, I'm starting to think that we need to transition from being everything for everyone, meaning we need to be much more focused on our attraction efforts. What does it mean? What businesses are they? What types of businesses are they? And also how those businesses are structured, right, to get around this idea of an algorithmic business decision. And so what I'm going to propose is that we target key industries. And so to target key industries, I think we need to do two things. We need to know our advantages and then also decide our thresholds for attraction. And now thresholds for attraction is sort of made up in the sense that these are just decisions on what it is we think is how we're going to decide. And so I'll go through that. The first is who we are, right? And these are not things I'm making up. These are based on lots of studies that have been done for the past 20, 30 decades, talks with your constituents and talks with business owners. And there's a pretty strong consensus, and even the City of Sonora Economic Development report that's just going to be out and presented later on today, they follow strongly with this idea that we are a natural resources community. 90% of the county is national forests. The U.S. Forest Service says that there's 585,000 acres within 50 miles that need extraction based on bark beetle and drought efforts. We have an aging population. Now, when this one gets brought up, there's always, wait, that's not a good thing, but this is based on business decisions, right? So if there's an aging population, there is a certain demographic of businesses that is their target. Strong tourism market. Yosemite National Park brought in 5 million visitors last year. And just in the month of July in 2019, there was 81,000 cars that drove through Groveland into that Big Oak Flat entrance. There's community partnerships. We are a community that really does work together. Access. This is a little bit another one that everyone's very confused because I always hear this idea that Tuolumne County is a dead end. Well, compared to our neighbors, we are definitely not. We have a very nice highway getting out of town, and that Sierra Northern Railway, you can connect to national ports and really get your products moving anywhere. And then cost savings. This is another one. In California, we're about 150% of the U.S. average for cost of living, but Tuolumne County, we're about 115. So based on a California living, we actually are an attractive cost of living. Next step is the thresholds for attraction. So these are some of the few that I think, based on conversations, we should be focusing on. So are the businesses bringing in wages that are comfortable to live here, right? So it may be well to attract another retail shop, but if they're only paying someone minimum wage, is that a good return on an investment for me and for our county to focus on them? Employment trends, is it useful to attract a business that has employment trends going downwards in our community, right? Community fit, this goes back to who we are. Does it fit within our community and what we think is our community? The growth potential, again, is it worthwhile to attract a business that doesn't have good growth potential? And then also we have to look at it as a county revenue potential. Is it useful? Is it going to help us work through our kind of deficit problems, our tax problems, and go that way? Key industries for Tuolumne County, and now this is based on the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and these are big lumped industries. So these may not necessarily mean anything to us other than one portion of it. So, for example, the mining, quarry, and oil, we don't necessarily have a quarry and oil industry, but we do have a mining industry. But these are the big key industries. So accommodation and food is sort of like tourism, recreational, agricultural, forestry, fishing, and hunting. We're definitely more on that agricultural side of that industry. Construction, healthcare, manufacturing, mining, again, retail, and utilities. So now these are our key industries, but again, we're trying to transition from being everything for everyone. So how do we decide? So you'll see this one a couple times. I'll keep coming back to this. So let's look at it first on that first level of threshold of attraction, which is wages. Well, if we just look at wages, utilities, mining, and ag, let's just start there, right? We should attract utilities because if you had a $133,000 job in Tuolumne County, you're living comfortably, single-family income, right? But that's not the only thing we're going to look at in targeting a business. We're also going to look at their employment trends. So let's look specifically at utilities, ag, and what's that last one? Mining, right? Well, they only make up 3% of the workforce in Tuolumne County. So does that necessarily, and most of them are in that bottom right-hand corner, is it worthwhile for me to spend my time trying to attract maybe an industry that's not necessarily the highest employer in our county? And you can also see the second part of that is what's the change, right? So this is from 2013 to 2019, what has happened in that industry in terms of employment? Well, in ag, it grew 28%. That seems really great, right? But in actuality, that's only 39 jobs over 6 years. Including mining, 3%. That's actually only 2 jobs we've added since 2013. Utilities, that's actually gone down 17 jobs. So again, we're getting to this point where we're starting to see a trend that maybe there's a way to whittle down what businesses we are thinking about attracting. And finally, there's that community fit, right? And again, we're looking right now at utilities, agriculture, and mining because those were the highest paying jobs. But do they fit in necessarily with our community? Well, if you think about mining, there's not much mining zoning left, and the capital costs to get a mine going are pretty strong, so maybe that's not the best spot for us. Utilities, a lot of the utility companies that are expanding and making job changes are big corporations, again, who are making algorithmic business decisions. So, in a sense, I'm saying, look at that, we can find ways to optimize my return on investment, your return on investment in the communities by knowing maybe mining and utilities are not the main focus for us, right? And so I'm going to go through one more time of let's get down to a potential. So we take out utilities, mining. That leaves ag, manufacturing, healthcare, and the numbers are a little small, but for example, agriculture, the average paying job is about $70,000. Healthcare, it's about $65,000, and it goes down from there. We're going to go back. Thresholds of attraction, employment trends. What's been happening? Well, healthcare is a very strong employer in our community. We knew that. Almost 3,000 jobs. Retail, very strong at about 25. Accommodation, that makes sense. Both of that accommodation and retail is very strongly propped up by our tourism market. And then ag, manufacturing, and construction. But again, we're not looking at just how many, it's how that's changed. And so what I would say is we would want to focus on healthcare, right? Because they're a pretty strong industrial partner. but we only see that 7%. But that 7% actually equates to about 197 jobs. So these percentages, I added the amount of jobs because it's a little deceiving, whereas that 7% is a much bigger change. And including this accommodation and food, that 25% actually comes out to about 441 jobs. Okay? And then we kind of want to think again about that community fit, right? Natural resources, that makes a lot of sense for our agricultural efforts. Tourism market, that makes a lot of sense for our accommodation and retail. Healthcare, we have an aging population, so there's a lot of future potential growth for that healthcare industry. And then let's look at some of that growth potential. And these numbers come from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. They recently put out numbers on GDP per industry in each of the counties across the nation. And that growth potential, we've seen a lot of growth. Look at that. We're seeing some trends in the agriculture with our natural resources. Accommodation and food, they've been growing as well. We're getting back to our tourism market. Healthcare is another community that are growing. Sorry, another industry that is growing. But these are, again, just percentages. What does it actually mean in numbers? Well, look at that healthcare. This growth is over $90 million in our industry. So it's a huge industry for Tuolumne County. Accommodation and food, retail. So I think by going through this process, you can see there's natural fits of where we should take our time and have a really focused campaign. And the final one that I think is really important is this idea of county revenue potential. And so there's two ways that I'm going to look at it based on my department on really where can I effectively help on the county revenue side. And one of them is sales tax, right? And so you can see, though, that sales tax is heavily affected by trends in what is happening in the world and in our county. And you can see in 2008, when we did go through the recession, our sales tax was hurt significantly. But if you look at transit occupancy tax, we barely felt anything. And that's mostly because our tourism industry isn't based on county and internal factors. That's based on that UK, Germany, France are our top tourism markets who visit our county, including China. And they're coming, if they've planned a trip, doesn't matter if there's a recession, they're still coming to the county, right? And the final thing to note is why I think that this TOT potential is very lucrative for our county is if you look to our neighbor Mariposa, they're that top line, they're bringing in 2017, about $14.5 million in TOT. And when we last spoke to them for about 19, they were pushing about $21 million. So this idea of transit occupancy tax, which your board brought to the community to vote on this year, is really important. This could be a really good way for our community to start kind of growing out of this kind of idea of a deficit and really pay for the services that we want. And again, TOT is really nice because you and me are not paying for this. This is really those tourists that are coming to our community to stay in hotel rooms and potentially RV camps. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think that we could really maximize our return on investment, by having potential targeted industries. And now this is important. It's potential because this is just based on conversation in our community and data, right? So that really means that this makes sense on paper, but now I'm going to actually go do the due diligence and ask those industries, which are hospitality, meaning about hotels, senior care, our healthcare industries, and natural resources manufacturing, what would it take to attract you? What do you need? What are the things you would want? Would you actually even join our community? Ask all those questions so that I can tailor a campaign that really it does attract them. And one note that I've said is the other thing that I think we should really target are private businesses with a board of directors able to make decisions without algorithms. So this means they're private companies. So that's the idea. Those are the potential targets. And now it's the idea of how is it going to get built? How am I going to spend my time to target these industries? And so here's a very loose timeline that I think is about right. We're going to spend time creating this idea. And creation means researching, talking to those industries, researching scholarly articles, similar counties that do projects as such, create all the collateral, and then develop it as well. And then implement, I think, because I don't want to just suddenly go out and target an industry and then find someone who's interested and not have everything ready, I don't think we should target right away. There should be a period where we really do create that, really develop the partnerships, really develop the idea before we go out and try to attract. And so my guess is we won't want to go out and attract any businesses until about June or July. The final note about this, and I think is what I've talked to your constituents and other business leaders in the community, is that this is finally a way for really us to track success and really understand what it is, what I am doing as a director for the Innovation and Business Assistance, because it'll be really obvious as there's responses to the campaign, is it working? And again, I don't think it's, it's not just success or responses, but are we not getting responses? Because failing, to me, is also really understanding how we're going to analyze and fix what we are to attract. So I think we're going to have campaign responses to track how many I'm reaching out to, the direct contacts, visits, virtual and physical, we'll be able to track those, and the ultimate success of a business joining the community. And so again, this is the idea and the concept that I think we should start to head towards. We have some potential target industries, and now it's up to me to really narrow in, are those the right industries? How are we going to attract them with that collateral? How are we going to follow up, and how are we going to track it? So this is the next few quarters that I'm headed on, and love to hear your input.
Thank you, Cole. I'm going to start to my left.
You going to start?
No, go ahead, Supervisor.
First of all, a great presentation, well thought out. I think the key things that you have listed there are obvious through your analysis, the ones that we need to go after. And I think there's some opportunities out there that we are maybe even looking at today that fit into that. Mm-hmm. So great job. Thanks.
Thank you.
Supervisor.
Yeah. Again, I'd echo everything John just said. It was a very good presentation. I'm looking forward to moving forward on it.
Agreed.
Just to be clear, just say them again. Where do you think we need to focus our?
I'll go back to it. At this point, based on data and conversations, I believe that we should target the hospitality industry, senior care industry, and natural resources manufacturing.
Okay.
And again, I'm looking for even more input, so if anyone is interested, I always like to say it. My cell phone number is 209-288-4030, and love to have conversations about this idea, about the industries, or any other thoughts.
Yeah, I asked that. That was a rhetorical question for me, but I just wanted to make sure that the public got it.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any questions to my right?
Yeah. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. You're answering my prayers right now. So much of what's gone into economic development, innovation, and business development in the county has been, I think, reading tea leaves up to this point. And what you've presented to us today is innovation and business development decisions based on data-informed analysis. And that's exactly what we need. I think your list here is a great list. There were some surprises, but hospitality doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, looking at the growth and the demand that exists in that area, I think it's absolutely something we need to be going full tilt in favor of promoting and developing in our community. There's so many opportunities there that are just as yet untapped. So I think that's perfectly good spot to have that at the top of your list. Senior care, that's not something I had typically, that I had really thought of before. But I think it's a great idea, and you've shown that there is potential there through the data, and that's exactly why we need that kind of analysis. So thank you for that. And then, natural resources is a pretty big slam dunk for us, I think, and always has been. And it's good to see that, we traditionally think of Tuolumne County as a natural resources-based economy, and it has been historically. But like many municipalities and areas in the country that were natural resources-based, it's no longer enough, and we need to diversify into these areas, and you've given us options to do that. So I'm all for it, and I think we need to go ahead and work on these areas.
Okay. Thank you.
Supervisor Kirk.
Sure. I like that you're taking the science, because I think we all have an idea that hospitality, senior care, natural resources play a vital role in our community, but obviously now there's some science to back it up, and so I think we're at the infant stages of, like you said, directing where we're going to take this. It's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds over the next few months. And again, tracking success. It's going to be a good platform. I think maybe something that, I know there's tons of success stories with the prior agency, but this will be a good platform or baseline to start tracking, like you said, what those conversations are, where we need to hone in and correct and adjust, and it's a good foundation. So I feel good about that. And then just something that I really appreciate is going out to the business owners and to the people on the streets and bringing them in on this conversation, because it sounds like they are confirming a lot of this research. And then a big thing that I just want to hone in on again is quality of life. Even Mr. Perkins brought it up at one of the board meetings that, we are a rural county and we need to focus on the quality of life. So instead of going after some big wild ideas, we're just going to focus on what the science says. And it was a little bit of a kick in the gut because I wanted to go after all the tech people. But like you said, the algorithms, it shows where they want to go. I do think there is still some room for that. I shared with you an article where those people get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to get bussed into Silicon Valley. And so I do think there is some discussion for that down the road, but I like science. And if science says this is where we should head, then let's go there and let's work it as we go. So
I'll follow up. Just one note on that is that we have had this idea, and a lot of your constituents brought it up, is the idea that we should also attract telecommuters. And while that's kind of where you're headed with that conversation just now, while I agree that we should attract telecommuters, I just don't think that that is the best use of our time and return on investment on a day-to-day, monthly basis, only from the idea that that's essentially attracting one person at a time. Whereas with a business attraction effort, you're trying to bring in and maximize the return. So while I think we should still try to attract telecommuters, I don't think it should be the focus. And again, that's just because we're trying to prioritize my time, because we found out that there's a lot of weeds that I can get involved in. So.
Well, and kind of like you said, before we go after and we start pitching to these people and going after them, we have to make sure we have our EDD. We need to have everybody on board, understanding the direction and ready to work those cases as we attract them. If we don't, then it's just not going to work. So, yeah. That's why we need broadband. Then we can go after.
So did you have a question, Supervisor
I
Campbell?
did. I was so excited over your presentation and talking about that, I forgot to ask the question that I had for you. So when we talk about these targeted industries, what scale are we talking about? I'll just use hospitality, for example. Are we talking about nationally recognized chains? Are we talking about individual Airbnb small businesses, something in between? What in that scheme of those industries, what it would be your primary focus?
Private businesses with a board of directors. And so that means maybe those national hotel chains aren't exactly right. The last few hotels that have been built in our community were built by local contractors who then franchise, including families that have the capital to invest in a business themselves. And so my guess is it's not going to be national hotel chains. It's going to be those family businesses that own and run hotels. Now, again, that's why this is potential. I'm going to go find that out and double check and make sure and adjust.
So,
and to start the conversation, let me give you an idea. In March, I'll be joining Visit Tuolumne at the California Adventure and Tourism in San Francisco. My sole focus of going there is to go talk to national hotel chains and those hotel chains that are going to be at the event and start asking and having those conversations. What it is, what do I have to do to attract you to our community? What do you need to start the investment? What it is, all those questions so that I can find out. Or am I trying to attract national chains? Am I trying to attract small mom and pops? My guess is I'm not trying to attract Airbnbs, because then it goes back to that same idea of one at a time. So.
And that kind of goes to the idea that, it's often talked about getting, a slam dunk, getting a huge business with millions of dollars in capital and, hundreds of employees and thousands of hotel rooms. Or Yeah, but really it sounds like the better strategy is to get a large number of smaller businesses than one or two giant businesses with a lot of capital.
Sure.
So I am going to open this up to public comment, but I would like to say that I wasn't surprised by these three outcomes, but the piece of this that I really do appreciate, again, is the science behind it. And I guess the point that I would also drive home, though, is that this is going to be evolving.
Yes.
And so I don't want anyone to believe that this is where this is a concrete path here. It will be evolving, and that's important.
Let me go back to the timeline to show you that there's a full reason that there's an analyze up there. Is that way there's going to be an outside website. There's going to be outside working with our partners for social media to really understand if I'm trying to attract a business, let's just say from Colorado or Nevada, and I don't see any responses on that website and those analytics from Nevada, maybe that might not be the best idea or that's where I should be targeting. So again, this idea of analysis, absolutely, it's built into the whole idea. So thank you.
All right. Please, public comment.
I'll make this quick. Ken Perkins, good morning. So listening to Cole's presentation, sitting in the back of the room, I got to thinking about the last couple of years. Lots have happened over the last couple of years. And I got to thinking my role was probably more like a baseball recruiter, and let me explain it to you what that would look like. The last economic development organization was a lot like a team that went out to the baseball field, and all they did was look at the scoreboard. They weren't concentrating on the game as much. And that happens a lot of times with people who are just sort of caught up in what they're trying to do for themselves rather than the game itself. And so over the couple of years, they didn't score very well. So it's no surprise that they got traded away, and now we have a new team. And this is a new season. And listening to this new team's strategy, I have a feeling that they're going to go out on the field, and they're not going to look at the scoreboard because that's not how you play the game. You go, you play the game, you play with everything you've got, and you have a strategy and a game plan. And so I'm looking very forward to watching this new team and this new season play, because I think this time we'll get some winning scores. And so with that, I would just say to Cole, play ball. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Chuck LeCamp, and I've had the privilege of talking to Cole about a number of the issues. Some I agree wholeheartedly with him. I think hospitality is an incredibly important way to improve the revenue of not only the county, but specifically the city as we bring more people up here who spend money. But there's an area that isn't really getting much attention, and that is the residents who live here and the need to build younger residents. This helps the seniors as well, and it definitely helps the school system. Right now, we have a declining school situation at the high school. It will probably continue to decline for some years. That's a real drain on the school board and a demand on the citizens who live here. They're coping with it in some ways I do not agree with, but they're trying. Well, my goal, and the way I see it, is you need to look at those telecommuters, and frankly, there are very few right now because it's not being adequately supported by any of the communications industry. That will get brought up tomorrow at the meeting, if by no one else, me, okay? It's very important to increase the basic population that is here. I would also like to speak to one of the fictions that we're engaged here. We call ourselves a rural county. That's true. But what we're really saying as rural is spread out population. It's not quite the same. It's certainly not a wilderness area. If you drive around, and I do this extensively, you find there are people literally in the 10 miles around Sonora. There are people all over the place. It isn't really rural. It's semi-urban with a lot of space that people like. That's not a bad thing. But what it means is we need to look a little bit more at our general plan that was approved, because we're trying to push our seniors into dense situations within existing communities, incorporated or otherwise. Those communities can be served, the senior communities who would rather be in a more protected environment closer to their peers, by looking at that and loosening it up a little. That happens to be one of my objectives. I make no bones about it. I'm in it for the money for that. And the other thing I do is special needs. And I'm developing a facility that will add 85 jobs. Okay, both of those are future, and both of those affect the county and the state. I have a major problem here with the fact, and by the way, I normally do not support bond measures. I happen to be very much in favor of both the transitional, the TOT, and the increase in sales tax, because if we are to keep our community viable, we have to have roads. Kim McFarland does a wonderful job, as did Duke York, but they have no money to do much with. They need money, and that's very, very important on most of this. To get money, you need citizens. It's fine to bring in tourists when the season is here, but these are people that live here year-round. Do not forget them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Steve Campbell, business owner and homeowner here in Tuolumne County, and I'd like to acknowledge that I'm also on the board of directors of the Tuolumne County Business Council. I guess I could say I'm going to be piling on here, Mr. Presbilla, to a certain degree. I'd like to commend him for the nature, methods, the depth of his analysis, as well as the transparency of his planned methods. I find both of them to be extremely professional and certainly refreshing. I think it also reflects, what he's presented here reflects very effectively the new tag placed on his role, innovation and business assistance. With that said, I would respectfully like to extend a challenge to you, our board, as well as county staff, to also become more innovative and supportive of business. Clearly, we have some challenges, and to reflect off of the prior speakers' observations about our school population trends, is a broadly accepted measure of health of a community for the trends of our school population. The trajectory here is not a good one. It's just one more measure that we indeed have some challenges here that we need to become innovative and, yes, aggressive to address. As I often reflect on every opportunity, whether it be the Business Council, the Chambers of Commerce, I'm also involved with Habitat for Humanity and other organizations, I try to make it clear that the ultimate solution to our challenges here in this county are indeed growth. We cannot tax, nor can we cut ourselves to prosperity, or quite frankly, folks, even to long-term survival. Quality of life is indeed an important element of all this. People mention roads because we're reminded of those every time we pull out of our garages, I guess. But there are a lot of dimensions to quality of life that is indeed dependent upon the infusion of capital. We have got to find innovative ways to attract capital to this county and have it invested here. And we've got to make sure, first and foremost, the capital that is already here is invested here. I know of firsthand examples where we have actually effectively driven substantial capital that was home here outside this county and invested in some 5 or 6 other counties. And I know examples where we have actually put up effectively walls to capital outside coming in. These are things that we've got to critically and aggressively address, and yes, find innovative, different ways to approach their solution. So with that, I again want to commend Mr. Presbelo for his early approach. Great job. I find it also very exciting. Mr. Campbell, I reflect your enthusiasm and the rest of the board. I think it's a wonderful beginning, and we look forward to seeing continued progress in that regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Board, and thank you to Cole for his great presentation. I think what this shows us is what our base is. Without doing anything, we're being shown where to look at a static target. I also would like to tag on to the last person who spoke, and that innovation is part of this. We have to be looking at trends, what's up and coming. And just to bring it to your board's attention, you'll be probably looking at this in the next couple of months. We do have an ISP, Internet Service Provider, within our community that has gained over $7 million in grants for broadband, $3 million from the state and over $4 million from the federal government. So while we're looking at what's good for right now, we also, it's kind of like a moving target. We also have to have a mind for what's up and coming so that we can plan for that too. So I don't think light tech necessarily is out of the equation. We have to keep that in mind, especially if we have a build out of broadband infrastructure here locally. And I just want to keep that in your mind's eye. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Rotifer.
Yeah, so I forgot to mention this in my first comments. Are you familiar with the term OODA? O-O-D-A? Observe, orient, decide, and act. It's a loop, okay? It's a decision loop. It's a model of how most humans process stuff. But anyway, as we go through this is like we're at the start, right? But those 3 are true today. But as we go forward, we have to loop back. We have to have a feedback loop. We have to constantly be reassessing where we're at. And those may change, as I think was alluded to by a couple of our public speakers. So I think it's important that we remember that as we go forward.
Okay.
I'm say that looking forward, because I know that's where you're going. But this is a great presentation. Again, I really appreciate the work you put into it.
Thank you.
So I'm going to speak on behalf of all my colleagues and say thank you. I think we are all excited to see where this goes, and we'll look forward to, I know you're going to be giving us updates quite often, and so go forth, do good things.
Right.
We don't anticipate, we expect it. So thank you very much. And this was just a presentation, so there is no action to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have time to do item 14? So, yeah, because I want to have enough time to present on this because it's important. So, actually, before we take a break, will the clerk of the board please read our closed session items?
This is closed session conference with the legal counsel, anticipated litigation authority, government code section 54956.9D2. It's 2 cases.
All right, we will take a 10-minute break, and then we will be recessing into closed session. Is there any public comment on the closed session item? Okay, seeing none, we'll adjourn into closed session.
County Administrator's Office. I have with me Supervisor Kuiken from the Stanislaus National Forest and Byron Krempel from Tuolumne River Trust. So today we're going to rather give you an update on what we've been up to this past year on the Master Stewardship Agreement and the projects that we've been undertaking in partnership with YSS and the Stanislaus National Forest. Okay, so I'm sure you all are very familiar with this by now, but your board's mission here is to provide exceptional public service. And in particular, when we talk about the Master Stewardship Agreement and the projects that we're conducting under that agreement, those really fit into exercising natural resource stewardship. As I think Cole mentioned this morning earlier, about 80% of our land mass is public lands between the forest and the national park. And so, as you all know, what happens there plays a huge role on what happens here to our community and our residents. And so that, going back to the first bullet point, healthy forests means healthy and safe communities here. So these Master Stewardship Agreement projects fit right in line with that. Of course, they also go to promoting economic prosperity. Again, as you heard earlier today about our natural resource products industry, how that is a significant portion of our industries here in the county. And then, of course, they also enhance quality of life. Okay, so just a little bit of a refresher for your board, but also for the public. What is a Master Stewardship Agreement, or as we refer to them, an MSA? They were authorized by Congress in 2003. They are 10-year agreements. Well, they were 10-year agreements. Now folks who are signing them actually have 20-year agreements, which is a great thing because that really gives some assurances to some of the industry and our contractors that we work with that, hey, these are going to be around for a long time, and so that they can potentially do some investments in their business, knowing that they might see some increased projects and capacity coming out of the forest. But our agreement, when your board signed it, rather, is a 10-year agreement with the option to extend it for another 10 years. The purpose of an MSA is to complete mutually beneficial restoration activities on federally managed lands. And in our case, it's the Stanislaus National Forest. The MSA describes the roles of each party and identifies the general location of the treatments. But SPAs, or supplemental project agreements, that's what describe the specific projects with the specific metrics, targets, that kind of thing. And then there's a cost-sharing component of an MSA where the partner contributes at least 20% of the funding for projects. And then in this case, the U.S. Forest Service contributes up to 80%. We've been very successful, and you'll hear more about this with our relationship with Tuolumne River Trust in getting that 20%. So that's not a problem for us. And just a little reminder on where did we start. So your board signed the MSA with the Forest Service in December 2017. And then we developed our first project with the Forest Service, our first SPA, and that was signed by your board in June of 2018. Since that time, we've been awarded a handful of grants, but we initially, early on, as sort of some seed money, we were awarded $450,000 from a few different pots of money, but from the Stanislaus and also some from Region 5. And I just want to mention that piece in particular because we had some funding that the Stanislaus, that Supervisor Kuiken in particular, wanted to put up to make sure that we could get our first projects going. But it wasn't quite enough for the project that we were doing, and we'll talk about what that project was. And so actually Supervisor Brennan went up to the state, to the regional office, and advocated for some additional funding from the regional forester up there. And so because of that additional funding that we got, we were able to complete our first project. And it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have the partnership, not only from the Stanislaus, but from the region. That just shows why you got to ask sometimes. And then in November 2018, we were awarded $5 million of California Climate Investment Forest Health Grant funding. We've since gotten other grants, and again, we'll talk more about that. But that's kind of where we started. So I want to talk briefly, and Byron's going to help me with this, on the roles and the partnerships of how this thing works. So As I mentioned, the MSA is a partnership between, well, specifically a partner is what the term is, which is the county, and a federal land manager. In this case, it's the Stanislaus National Forest. When we first started talking about the MSA, it was in the context of YSS, the Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions Collaborative. And they were really looking, the county is a part of YSS, and we all were looking for ways to increase the pace and scale of forest treatment activities. And this was on a field trip with the deputy forester, I believe, who was there, and he had suggested, well, why don't you guys consider an MSA? And after a lot of conversation, kind of back and forth with the forest and with YSS, it became clear that the county was best suited to be that partner, but we really work on behalf of YSS. And a couple things I just want to mention about that. So when your board signed the MSA with the Forest Service, you also signed a letter of understanding with YSS. And what that says is that your board will not pursue projects that have not first received consensus agreement from YSS. And it also said that the county would hire the Tuolumne River Trust because of their extensive experience, and I'll let Byron speak a little more to that, but that we would hire the Tuolumne River Trust as our project manager. And that was a way for YSS to make sure that there's a lot of involvement from YSS. And so that is how we've been operating, and it's been going really well. Byron, I'll let you speak to specifically the Tuolumne River Trust role in the MSA.
All right, thanks, Liz. So just a quick note about YSS. So it's a collaborative with about 30 different members right now. So it has a lot of breadth and depth experience in the landscape, industry, nonprofits, which is where TRT comes in, that all come together to help share the story and the vision for this land management within the county and the Stanislaus National Forest. So then within this collaborative, the Tuolumne River Trust is currently the executive director of the Tuolumne River Trust is the chair of YSS. That is my boss, Patrick Kopel. And he has worked for the Tuolumne River Trust for over 20 years, helping their mission to restore and protect the Tuolumne River watershed. A few years ago, the Tuolumne River Trust began to look beyond just the river corridor to the forest landscape to see what we could do to preserve water quantity and quality before it got to the physical river, with the 2013 rimfire being a perfect example of an opportunity that could be taken to restore the forest and then also to highlight the need to prevent catastrophic wildfires from happening on that same scale that impact not only the headwater forests within Tuolumne County and the Stanislaus National Forest, but also downstream users. So now TRT works very closely with YSS and the Tuolumne County and the Stanislaus National Forest to help be the boots on the ground for a lot of this grant writing or project management of these projects under the MSA.
So in particular, Tuolumne River Trust, a couple of things that they do for the county is they write the grants to receive the funding to do these projects on our behalf. I feel guilty often because it says my name on the grant application, and I frankly had very little to do with it. It's often Byron, who is excellent, and some other TRT staff who have put the project idea together, working with YSS and some of our other partners. So it's been a really great relationship. And then TRT also goes out into the field, and they act as our project inspectors as well, working with the last bullet there are private contractors. So we hire private contractors to do the work. Obviously, I'm not out in the field, doing that work. But yeah, so TRT acts as our project manager for that. So they have staffed up. They have hired a couple folks to do that work. So that's kind of how it all fits together. I'm going to let Byron just talk about what this map is.
Sure. So this map on the screen over here covers projects that are ongoing under the MSA with the county. So there are other projects that are ongoing either by TRT, the Forest Service, the Highway 108 Fire Safe Council, etc. But these projects here are the ones that are explicitly covered through Tuolumne County's MSA with the Stanislaus National Forest. As you can see, most of these projects occur within the footprint of the rim fire just because of the tremendous need for forest restoration. I tried to group these different project areas by color, with the different shades of blue being thinning projects, where we're going in and increasing forest health, trying to prevent catastrophic wildfire from happening, increase wildlife habitat, the ability of the forests to function as they historically have. And then these green projects here are the reforestation efforts under the MSA. And so those are areas that were very severely burned, would not see natural regeneration in our lifetimes due to the impacts of the rim fire. So then we are able to go in and give those landscapes a jumpstart on that reforestation effort, increasing the ability of those ecosystems to filter water, create wildlife habitat, and restore some of those forest structures that are historically associated with Tuolumne County. We have a few projects that are occurring outside of that boundary. There was a thinning project that occurred on Highway 108. We're doing some prescribed burns out there. There's going to be another thinning project that will start being undertaken this year in the Mount Lewis area. That's that blue dot all the way on the western side of the project. That's going to be a 123-acre thinning project that will start to, or will complement ongoing projects to protect the communities within Tuolumne County. Those communities would be all the way on the left side of the map. You can see Miwok Village, Long Barn, Twain Harte, Tuolumne, a lot of these counties that could be very impacted by catastrophic wildfire. And so our efforts under this MSA always keep those communities in mind as we try to ensure that these communities are able to enjoy our natural resources without having to take on risks from wildfire or erosion post-catastrophic burn.
Okay, so just a summary of what we did in the last year. So the first project that we completed was what we call Looney. The Forest Service names these projects, we don't. So, and this was about a 900-acre layout and cruise for a commercial timber harvest project. That completed in May of 2019. We hired a private contractor to do all that work. So again, they're not cutting trees, but they're laying it out. They're making sure that they're assessing how much value is actually in the project itself. And then the Forest Service issued the sale just recently, actually, and we'll get to that. This is a map of the units, and it was about 7.5 million board feet that was sold project. And it was purchased by a local company from Mariposa County, actually. So that's a great thing. Again, one of the benefits of the MSA is that we will hope to see an increase in our local forest products industry being used and being able to staff up. And so whenever we can use local folks, it's always a great thing. This is just a picture of the company that we hired that's out there clearly doing important work to lay out the project and all of that. Okay, so then we have the 2 Mile project, and this was a mastication project of about 318 acres. It was completed in September 2019. You can see those yellowish blobs all around this area, primarily in the Miwok Ranger District. The project also was completed by a local contractor, and one thing I want to say about this is that another benefit of the MSA is that when funds become available, if the Forest Service isn't able to spend what they've been appropriated because, for example, the Donnell fire in 2018, where their staff were working on fire suppression efforts, then they're able to, Supervisor Kuiken is able to allocate the funds into the MSA so that the funds stay on the Stanislaus National Forest for additional treatments that then the county can execute through the MSA, that normally those funds would have to go back to the National Treasury and they would disappear into thin air likely. So this is a perfect example of another benefit of the MSA, that these funds went to completing this project, and it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have this MSA in place. Here's an example before and after of the 2 Mile. Again, this is a mastication project. So that's a machine shredding work, fuel reduction. And then we have the South 108, also a mastication project, about 83 acres that was completed in October 2019. This is a couple units here that you can see in the purple. It's some fuel reduction work surrounding the community of Miwok. You can see the Miwok Ranger District office over there on the far left. But that was the purpose of this project. It was focused primarily on community protection. This is another great benefit of the MSA. So when the county, issued the request for proposals for work to be done in this way, we used the NEPA that had already been written and for the scope of the project, which described some machine work and some hand piling work. When we got the bids back, it was way more than what we could pay for, way more than the funding we had to do the work because of the handwork piece in particular. So we were able to work with the district on adjusting the scope, still fitting within how the NEPA had been written, but being able to adjust it so that we could get the work done maybe a little more creatively than maybe it would have been done in the past. Or that had been designed for this project in particular. So another great benefit of the MSA. So then I want to talk about projects that are in process. And I'm going to let Byron speak to the LiDAR acquisition because he loves this stuff.
Yes, I'm very excited about LiDAR. LiDAR is an acronym for Light Detection and Ranging. It's like radar, except it uses a laser from an airplane or a terrestrial equipment to go and measure structures. Be that structure a biological structure like a tree, water flumes within Tuolumne County, anything like that. So under this CAL FIRE grant that we got in 2018, we were able to purchase a roughly 1.4 million acre LiDAR set, which involved airplanes being flown over the Tuolumne County and Stanislaus National Forest area, lasers shining down and measuring the returns back when that light bounced back to that aircraft, which allows us to get a very in-depth view of 1.4 million acres in a single summer. So this data will allow us to enhance our decision-making, that data-driven decision-making we're working on, emphasizing for the forest. It's incredibly helpful because we can see unique trees. We can see the structure of those trees, areas that might be better for wildlife habitat or have a higher risk of fire. But this data set is also going to be very useful to TUD or other organizations within the county because they can see water flumes. They can see areas that might be accessible for recreation or need to be restored to put campsites back on that landscape. So this LiDAR set is going to allow the Stanislaus National Forest, Tuolumne County, TRT, YSS to all work together and be able to look at the entire landscape as a landscape and determine the best treatment areas, the best projects to take on in order to ensure we have the best benefit we can provide to the citizens of the county.
Can I interrupt you real quickly because this is so important, and Tuolumne County really stepped out and we were the first to do it. And now I'm going to say that the governor has made this a priority for all of the forested counties in the state, in the Sierra Nevadas and coastal. And again, this is going to be great information and our ability to assess projects. And that was really validated with the governor's proposal a couple of weeks ago to do this across the state.
Yeah, and I didn't say it in the beginning, but Supervisor Kuiken is going to be giving an update presentation after this here. So I'm kind of speaking about all the great things that he's been doing. He'll have more to say. But this was another example of his leadership in really getting us to think about using some of those grant funds to acquire LiDAR data because we can use this for future planning, and that it really was some foresight. Rather than just thinking about treatment on the ground, let's look to the future. So, thanks, Supervisor. Okay, so another projects that are in process are the granite, thin, and reforestation projects. And Byron, I'm going to turn it over to you again.
Sure thing. So these projects are out by Cherry Lake. There's about 2,400 acres of ongoing project that's occurring. There's a map on the screen now that shows some of those project areas. The brown is reforestation, the brown is thinning, excuse me. The turquoise, is that what color you would use to describe that? Sure. Turquoise is going to be the reforestation. And then off in the right, you can just see the corner of the immigrant wilderness there, I believe. So there's going to be these projects occurring there. A lot of this area was very severely burned, hence the need for reforestation. Some of the forest that wasn't burned is plantation forests that were planted in the 1980s. 1990 from the 87 complex fire. Those forests were treated in roughly 2003, 2004. There were some thinning treatments that were applied there, which is why those forests did not burn during the Rim Fire or did not see that severe wildfire. Forest treatments worked. This is a tremendous example of what we're doing, where these forests were able to survive that because their health had been improved. But now as the clock has spun forward, these forests are in need of more treatment, and this area is now in need of more wildlife habitat. And so by going in and doing these forest treatments, we're able to ensure that the existing forest is able to stick around in perpetuity, providing all of these benefits to the landscape as a whole. So these projects are underway. I was out there last week. We've got more contractors coming this summer. Right now, we're just waiting to see whether or not more snow is going to be impacting that region and affecting that work. But this summer, there will be a lot of work ongoing in order to help ensure that those projects stay on schedule. But right now, things are looking really good.
Here's just a little before and after of some of that fuels work that was done to prepare the site for planting. Okay, and then we also have our Strawberry Phase 2 project, and this is a prep work for prescribed burning. So the acres is a little, we go back and forth on this. So in total, the plan is to burn about 3,700 acres. But we at the county through the MSA will only be doing prep work on about 1,000 of those acres. And here's the map. This is all around. You can see the Strawberry, Pinecrest area, north primarily of Highway 108. But, you know, it's going to be a significant amount of work that's done, fuels reduction work that's done primarily for community protection. One thing I want to say about this is that the cultural surveys and flagging have been completed by a county contractor. So when we look at these projects, the whole point is to add capacity and increase the pace and scale to the Forest Service. We're not taking away projects from their program of work. We're adding to projects. And one of the things that we heard pretty clearly, or we experienced pretty clearly, is the lack of cultural staff, cultural resource staff. Those are hard to come by. So the county hired a cultural resource firm. So we have them on retainer, essentially, to do the work on these projects. And so they go out, they work with the Forest Service directly. They go out onto the forested lands. They do either the surveys for if there's cultural resources around, or they'll flag the cultural resources so that the contractor, when they go out, they avoid those areas to keep them protected. So this has been a really great way to add additional capacity on these projects and to make sure that they happen, because otherwise we would be waiting for the Forest Service cultural staff, which again, their staff are limited and they have their own projects that they need to be working on. We don't want to take them off of other projects. So this is a huge deal. So we haven't done any work on the ground yet, but we have done the flagging and surveying, which again is a huge deal. Then we'll be working with our very own sheriff inmate crews to do all of the handwork. So that'll be like piling and things like that. And then we will contract out for machine work, and that'll be like dozers who will make dozer lines around some of these units. You can see like the green areas to make sure that the fire stays in the perimeter that it's supposed to stay in. And then the burning will take place as soon as possible, as soon as we have a window, as soon as the weather is appropriate. And then here's what's next. A bunch of other projects, and Byron alluded to some of those, and I'm going to defer to him on these.
Sure. So as I'd mentioned, there's that Mount Lewis project. That's going to be 123 acres of thinning that we are working on getting the ball rolling on that project right now. That's under an existing EA, an environmental assessment NEPA document that allows us to go do that work. We were just recently awarded and we have been recommended for an award that will fund this 2,000 acres of rimfire reforestation. That's that 2,000 acres on the board there. So we will be getting that funding in March, April, May, that window, which will allow us to start that work this field season for large amounts of reforestation out by Cherry Lake, out by Camp Mather, along that Highway 120 corridor that did see a lot of that tremendous burn, and then also sees large amounts of traffic flowing through the region. In addition, we are currently hopeful of being awarded. We are pursuing a 3,000-acre project area in the Mount Provo, Mount Lewis area that just protects a lot of those communities, Twain Harte, Miwok Village, etc. So that is an existing project area that we are seeking funding for right now.
Okay, so just to wrap up, I want to mention just some of the accomplishments of the MSA more broadly. As I mentioned, the purpose of the MSA is to increase the pace and scale of forest treatment. We've heard that phrase a lot over the years. I've certainly heard that phrase a lot. And so I'm proud to say that with our partners, we currently have about 10,000 acres of treatment that either have been completed or that are funded under the MSA and will be completed. And you know, when we look at the nature of the problem, 10,000 acres is a drop in the bucket, but it is more than what would have happened if we didn't have the MSA. And again, that all those acres are additive. They are not taking away from the Stanislaus's normal program of work. That's a huge priority, I know, for your board, but also for YSS. And so when we look at projects that we want to complete, it's in addition to. So that's a really big accomplishment. Another one is continuing to improve the county's relationship with YSS and the Stanislaus. I think we've had a good relationship, but this is like a really tangible thing that we can see that has really helped to build and grow these relationships. And the MSA, I think Jason's going to speak to this more, but the MSA has been a catalyst for other successes, in particular with YSS. And then, you know, we really are setting the standard statewide for partnership and collaboration toward a common goal. You heard from Byron, the Tuolumne River Trust wasn't really looking at forest health per se a handful of years ago, but now we all are working together toward this same goal of treating the forest, of preserving our natural resources, of protecting life and property. So I think it's an accomplishment that we should all be proud of. And then, of course, our biggest hurdle is funding. I just wanted to bring that to your board's attention. We, as you have heard, Byron and the Tuolumne River Trust have been exceptional at applying for grants and receiving grants, but we're beholden to grants at this point. And if we want to see any meaningful increase in forest treatment activities, you know, we're sort of set up with the mechanisms, but the funding is the biggest issue. So we're going to be pursuing some other opportunities potentially about maybe pursuing some investors or looking at making the benefits a little more clear to some of our other partner agencies, say water agencies, for example, who have a benefit or who have an interest maybe in the headwaters here of the Stanislaus or Tuolumne Rivers, for example. So we're always trying to be creative, but I just wanted to bring that to your board's attention, that funding, ongoing, you know, funding, it's the same as what we've been talking about with this fire preparedness issue. That's our biggest hurdle. So that's all we have for you. And again, Jason is also planning to give some updates on some things. So I don't know if you want to, well, I'll defer to you on how you want to deal with that.
All right. Good morning, Madam Chair, as well as members of the board. Thank you for having me here today and being able to be part of this update. But let me also apologize that it's been so long since I've sat before the entire board. While I've spoken with a number of you on the phone or in person in the last few months, I have not come before the board, so my apologies, and I'll do better at trying to appear here more regularly. So wanted to give a few updates, and so I just wanted to build upon a little bit of what Liz and Byron were just talking about, and that is the Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions Collaborative. And in my humble view, as well as in a few others' view, YSS is one of the more or most functional collaborative groups, not just in California but nationwide, and that's because of that common interest in doing the right thing on the landscape and doing that to scale. That's been shown time and time again for things like the Master Stewardship Agreement, the county leading out on taking on that Master Stewardship Agreement is something that has garnered great interest far and wide. I've personally spoken with individuals from Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, as well as California on what that MSA is, how it operates, and how that provides additional capability both to the National Forest System as well as to counties and partners and other collaborative groups. And so thank you for leading out on that and taking that chance on us, the Stanislaus. What that has built upon is that common vision of what a healthy forest is and how important that is to all aspects of life within the forested counties of California. By doing that work, we are not just increasing the pace and scale of restoration with that 10,000 acres, and while all that was while that may not seem like a lot, as Liz pointed out, she was absolutely accurate that that's not the end. That is just the beginning, and that is a monumental step that we would not have been able to take on our own. And I see that future being more than 10,000 acres a year rather than just the lifetime. So very excited about what's in store there. And so to take that and go to that LiDAR acquisition, absolutely, that is huge. That is huge for, we're ahead of the curve, so everybody else will start getting LiDAR soon thereafter. But it also provides us with the unique opportunity to demonstrate to others how best to use that information. And so we're putting together a team of folks from within the Forest Service, both from the Stanislaus as well as Pacific Southwest Research Station, Rocky Mountain Research Station, as well as our partners externally from Byron and TRT and county and others to figure out how best to use that massive amount of information. It's 3 terabytes worth, I think, 4, now it's 4 terabytes worth of information, which 20 years ago couldn't even have understood that type of number. To be able to prioritize work in this landscape. So what are those criteria on the landscape? So how does individual homes and communities stack up against wildlife habitat, stack up against water flumes that provide water to Sonora and other places? How do we incorporate the ability to perform work on that landscape, meaning you have economic timber sales with accessible ground and roads, and I'll go back to roads here in a little bit on a different subject. And so how do we prioritize that work, and then how do we plan that work to be most effective? So being strategic in how we're treating that landscape to best utilize our complete capacity. And when I say our from here on out, our means all of our capacity to perform work on the landscape. And in that demonstration, I believe we'll be able to show other counties, other forests, as well as other federally managed lands, how they can really plan out work. So I'm excited about the opportunity to continue on this partnership and more to come on what that really means. So before I go on to some other subjects, just wanted to see if there are any questions about that topic. I can proceed. So wanted to actually go into a couple of personnel changes. Wanted to make sure everybody on the board is aware that Beth Martinez is now the Deputy Forest Supervisor. Scott Tangenberg is now the Forest Supervisor on the Cleveland out of San Diego. Beth is a very familiar face to many. On the forest, she has worked here for over 20 years, both on the Miwok district as well as public services staff officer in the SO for a number of years. She is simply tremendous in all regards, and I'm excited to have her in that role. And so you are free to reach out to either Beth or myself if there's any issues regarding anything on the forest. So that's one major personnel change. Another is this is temporary. Sarah LaPlante, the district ranger for Miwok and Summit, is currently on maternity leave. Ray Kablayan is the acting district ranger. Ray is normally the district ranger for Calaveras, but he's stepping in right now there. Dawn Coltrap is acting district ranger at Calaveras, normally our range program manager. She's still going to be able to engage in range conversations forest-wide, but she's a tremendous hand as well, and looking forward to seeing her in that role as acting ranger for Calaveras. And now to go away from personnel, to go back to resource management, rimfire restoration through YSS, through those grants, as well as through the HUD work is continuing. Really, last year was a major hurdle. We're able to issue $9 million or so worth of contracts, and much of that work is ongoing. That's both fuels removal, biomass removal, as well as piling and burning. We have burned forest-wide over 7,000 acres worth of piles this fiscal year, which started October 1st, many of which are within the rimfire footprint, both constructed by the HUD grant as well as other grants received, and that is to set up for that planting work. And so additional contracts should be issued this year, and thank you to the board for your ongoing support of that project. That's another collective effort that is showing great success. To then go to other fires, Donnell fire recovery is also ongoing. I really appreciate county's support and work with working to reissue permits to have people reconstruct burned cabins. I should have come prepared with the number of plans we have approved. It's a small number now, but I know we're in other conversations with other folks, and that's with the county planning department on making sure that is as smooth as possible. So thank you for that coordination and support as well. We've also done a lot of hazard tree removal, and salvage is ongoing. It's above snow line right now, so some of the hazard work will continue in the spring, but quite a bit was done last fall. So thank you for that. And then I'll go to roads in general. We continue to do our best at maintaining and improving roads on the forest. I do wish we could accomplish more. To put it in a bit of perspective, our annual road budget is less than 2.5% of the county road maintenance and capital improvement budget, and that's not. I'm not trying to say I don't appreciate what we have. Just trying to incorporate that into what we can accomplish on the landscape. We have one roads crew that we prioritize work generally based on where upcoming projects are, both timber sales as well as prescribed fire. And yet want to also provide as much access for recreation, range, limited mining activities that we have on the forest as best we can. We are able to accomplish a bit more road maintenance through timber sales as part of that package, but that changes some of the economics on those timber sales, as well as when our partners haul logs on Forest Service roads. We do a cost share for that, but are only able then to maintain or improve roads that were hauled on. One of which is Cottonwood Road. So we are hoping to fix some of the damage from 2018 winter that was fixed from 2017 rains. So that project should take place next year. Hoping to get that contract out here soon, as well as late this fall. Work should start on Beardsley Day Use access on that road. That contract, I believe, is fully issued, and so that's going to be that'll be big. I know that's an important recreation spot for folks. To go on to over snow vehicles, really have appreciated input from all of our concerned public and the board on what that over snow vehicle decision, snowmobiling, on where people can recreate on snowmobiles. I should be issuing that decision in the coming months, and we'll be in continued conversation trying to balance impacts to recreation with our forest plan, as well as to any resource concerns out there. And I should have done this road update with roads, is Lumpson Road. I think I'm saying that name right. There will be work in conjunction with Hetch Hetchy late this fall. That does mean that road will be closed going down to the Tuolumne for a while, and I recognize that will have impact on recreation and that fall fishing season, but this is a necessary road improvement, or really an improvement. We did our best to work with Hetch Hetchy to schedule that at the best time, as well as reduce any other impacts. Looked at trying to have that maintenance equipment moved every night, but that would be too challenging, so that road will be closed for a bit, and again recognize the impacts that will have for members of the public. Should be in a better maintained condition next year. And then wanted to end with another forest health update, and that is around prescribed fire. In order to best have forest health conditions improve, it's going to take all of the tools in the toolbox, from timber sales to pre-commercial thinning activities that will have biomass removed or piled and piles burned, but also broadcast burning. And so we are doing our best to increase the amount of acres that we're touching in total. In 2019, we were at about 23,000 acres of hazardous fuels treated, hoping for about the same this year, and yet in the future trying to go well above that, and much of that will occur through prescribed fire from broadcast burning. And yet, in order to safely apply fire on the landscape, we recognize we need to do some other treatments first in general, and that's, again, to tie back to YSS, where this is such a great collaborative group, because we can work together to identify those issues, to identify priorities, and to work to implement on the ground. So those were my main updates, and now open to any questions.
So first, let me thank you for the presentation. I think there will be some questions, and I want to get some public comment, but I believe Supervisor Rotifer, if you have a comment, I know you have an appointment.
Yeah, I've got a noon appointment, so I want to thank everybody for the presentation. First of all, great presentation. It's fun to be on a team that's leading the charge in the state and probably in the nation as well. Again, YSS, awesome. We couldn't do it without them. So, again, thank you for the presentation, and I'm sorry I'm going to have to run, but I do.
Thank you, sir.
So, Supervisor.
Yeah, I think back not too many years ago when I sat on some of the first YSS little meetings and looking at the group and saying, how is this ever going to come together? Because it is a diverse group of people, but obviously we've got the right people there. You guys have done a wonderful job as far as getting the work done and spending those dollars. And I guess it's up to us to try to work harder, try to get more money, and then you can do more work. But I do have one specific question, and as it's the road to Beardsley. How are we doing on the Beardsley Road?
So it's, and I should have come better prepared, but it's my understanding that the road work will begin, I want to say in September, after Labor Day is my understanding. There is a bit of access, not to the day use area, but to the road. It'd be to the east. It's generally a tri-dam road, and I'm forgetting the name of the road, but there's a bit of access. It's steep. I've been on it, and I wouldn't be hauling too much down there, but hopefully this fall work will be completed, so it'll be open next summer.
Thank you.
Supervisor.
Yeah, thank you all for the presentation. We'll start with Liz, because I mean, I'm sure you've heard many times from everybody on this board what a fantastic job you've done with this and coordinating so many moving parts, and keep it up. And I agree with the statement that we need to keep looking for more money and do more of it, because it's what we've done so far has been extremely helpful, and I've seen the positive impacts of it, not just with regard to these programs themselves, but in other areas, better coordination with the Forest Service and some of these private entities that are doing some of the actual work on the ground. Byron, LIDAR, I'm right there with you. I mean, people here have heard me say many times that, I want to see data, because that's how you make informed decisions. When you have limited resources, having that information helps you put the resources right where they need to be and make really efficient decisions with these projects. So, I'm totally on board with doing that. So thank you for all that work. And Jason, great presentation. I welcome and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to address the board about these things. And I think we have a really good level of communication. One question I had, and it's on the roads, which is the thing I always, is there a method by which citizens or residents or people that enjoy the Forest Service can request work be done on a particular road, or advocate for one road over another, or is that, I imagine that happens similar to how it happens in the county, where it's prioritized more by staff?
So we do listen to requests, and they do come in, but it generally is then prioritized by the district rangers based on, again, projects is the main emphasis, and then well-known recreation sites, as well as other permitted activities and that work. One of the things that we've done more of in the last 10 years than previous to that is issue road use permits, and in the last few years, how those we've tried to streamline that road use permit even more than we had done historically. So it's now just a couple pages, and we can get those issued in generally a week or so. It only takes a little bit of time, but I need to have somebody sit in the office to actually do it. Generally, it's to just issue somebody the authority to maintain roads, trying to have some level of understanding of what that work should look like, but really trying to do more of that and not make it a burden on individuals.
And then the last question is kind of for us. Who do we talk to get you more funding for road maintenance in the forest?
Yeah. So
what doors do we bang on? Or
So can I speak to that real quickly, because I think this is really a much larger effort, and when you hit on it, when your budget is 2.5% of the county budget, and I don't know the comparison on roads, but I know you've got probably what are your total miles of roads?
I should know this. I believe we have like 4,000 miles of open road on the forest.
So we have really started this conversation at a national level through a number of venues, because when we talk about ingress and egress, especially when we talk about it with fire resiliency, and when we look at how our population doubles during peak recreation, and an awful lot of that is actually out in the forest, this has become a major issue. And so again, critical mass. And so I'm going to say to us, when we have our retreat and we talk about specifically not just the goals, but how are we going to prioritize those, I believe this is going to surface as a priority, and we're already in those conversations with our federal legislators, because they really have to find a way to appropriate some additional funds. And I agree that your road budget has been decimated over the last 20 years. You had virtually no road budget for about 10 years, I think. So, and we have seen what that has done to your ability to even do just the bare maintenance out there with cleaning culverts and doing some ditch work. So I'm going to put it on us to prioritize it going forward, specifically when we look at fire resiliency. I think it's incumbent on us to really key in and target some of these areas that we will have identified through our fire resiliency group that are large issues that we have got to get a targeted campaign against. And I would say this roads piece with the Forest Service is that piece. And I'd also point out that I was aware that I believe the regional forester got an allocation in a budget that he was going to send some of that to the Stanislaus, not specifically with roads, but just maybe I'm being a little ahead of the ball here, but I just thought the way I heard it was an affirmation of the very good work that is being done on the Stanislaus with regards to collaboration and YSS. Am I misinformed?
No, you are not misinformed. Yes, we are getting about $2 million in order to really demonstrate how all of this comes together, and that not only comes with money, it should come with technical expertise as well as other support in order to progress everything that we've been working on in just a shorter time frame than otherwise.
Again, I just put an exclamation point on the affirmation from both those that are within your organization, but then at the state level and just across so many jurisdictions, how important this collaborative work is in getting actual projects accomplished on the landscape. And so I was excited when I heard that, and we'll be waiting for the rollout of what that's going to be. And then additionally, Liz, we've heard about this funding issue, and so getting very specific going forward with what some of those opportunities are going to be, because we all do know that grant funds are not going to sustain what we need to do, and then more than that, we will have to do maintenance. And again, some of those control burn pieces are going to be really critical, but we really have to look at those funding mechanisms and look for creative solutions that are outside of the granting realm that currently exists. So with that, I'd ask if there's any public comment. Please come to the podium.
Hello, supervisors and forest management staff. My name is Louis Dillon. I live here in Sonora, And I have worked in the Sierra Nevadas for the past 20, 25 years, mainly on the east side, some on the west side. And I've experienced what I consider the California legislator dropping the ball on forest management. Obviously, the governor is trying to turn that around now, but we only have to look at the calendar, the history, the date of these fires, the extremity of them, and the policies behind managing them, only to realize that California has claimed the first place in mismanaging its forests. And this is due to the fact that stewardship of our forests begins with people. It doesn't begin with lasers, complex applications, all this over complexity and diverting people's attention from what's really important, which is having access, being able to identify with these forests rather than being somewhat unattached to them and not having any interaction with them, because we only go to them for recreation maybe once a year. But in fact, they are parts of our lives and historically have been more involved in our lives. But now that process is eroding, and I see it in the trailheads. I see it in a lot of different areas, simply because the people running the show have different agendas, and their agendas are not with the local resident who lives in and around those areas, who is maybe trying to make a living or has a farming activity. It's completely pushed those sort of people out of the realm, and those are the people traditionally that cared about the forests and the trails.
So do you have something specific to the master stewardship agreement that you would like to comment on?
Well, yeah.
That was the item, please.
I would like to see, instead of, all these grants to specific corporations or people, I would like to see it offered up in a more of a public, generic way, so that people are involved and it's not, they don't feel excluded from it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. Thank you very much for attending. We really appreciate the update, and we will be in recess until 1:30.
Albrecht, Tree Mortality Project Coordinator. I believe I got most of the titles there. We're here today to provide a brief summary and update on the tree mortality program inside Tuolumne County. Starting off, refer to our mission and values, our mission and vision, sorry. And as I was looking over the presentation today and comparing it to our tree mortality work, I couldn't help but see every aspect of this within our tree mortality program, creating the health and safety communities, exercising natural stewardship, promoting economic prosperity, and enhancing our quality of life. I believe this program met all 4 of those points on the vision there. So why are we here? That is a deep philosophical question, but for today's purpose, we are here because the match element, the local assistance for tree mortality program, the matching grant to our CDAA funding terminated as of January 31st of this year. So we'll do a brief summary of our program, just refresh everybody's memories, talk a little bit about the trees removed, our costs, some of what we believe are our major achievements, and then a little bit of what OES will be doing moving forward. So, okay, that looks like it's big enough to read. This is kind of a quick snapshot of how things played out with our tree mortality program. As you all recall, in 2015, this board proclaimed a local state of emergency due to tree mortality from drought and bark beetle conditions that turned our green landscape brown. In October 2015, the governor followed suit and also declared proclaimed a state of emergency. Between that point in time and July 2016, your board and our office was very active in the community and at the state level, advocating for support and creating a plan to combat the tree mortality epidemic. In fiscal year 16-17, your board took action, took some funds from general reserves to use as match for our CDAA funding that we received. And then in 2017, we were successful in being awarded $2.4 million towards tree mortality on private properties under the SRA program. And that, of course, none of this was alone. As I go throughout this entire project, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we have so many partners that made us so successful in all of this. And then from that point until currently, Tuolumne County has conducted over 80 projects, removing almost 19,000 trees under this program. And that, of course, doesn't even touch what some other agencies have done, such as PG&E in this community. Okay, so I apologize for that. And where would we be if we didn't have some kind of technical complication?
If you're going to have one, that's a good picture.
That was a great one, yeah. Okay, so like I said, we had so many partners. And of course, in our discussions with residents at our community forums, different partners throughout the county, we have GIS here today, is one I'll name by name. They have done so much with us in the way of mapping and helping us plan all of these projects. They've been a huge help. Also, county roads. Duke and a lot of people over there, but obviously Duke had his fingerprints on this as well. And of course, all the hassle we gave county council with all of our legal documents that go out, right of entries, and we appreciate that. Mike Albrecht, our project coordinator, I have him up here, highlight him and make the rest of us look good, has been a great advocate for us on many levels. But his subject matter expertise was invaluable. We also have quite a few guys, our registered professional foresters here today, that I'll get to numbers more in a little bit, but I was looking over the numbers, and just in marked trees alone, if everything was equal, they would have marked 4,000 trees apiece, and that's not even saying how many they examined. And then, of course, we have different partnerships with CAL FIRE, our partnering agencies under the task force, and along a partnership with Ultra Power as well. Yes. So, as you recall, there were 10 high-hazard counties with this tree mortality epidemic. And I kind of wanted to just show a quick visual on if we were competing where we would rank. We would have liked to be in that top one. We would have. But I don't think this is a shabby effort whatsoever on our part, taking out 19,000 trees at just shy of the Fresno County effort there. Getting to project costs, one of the great things about this program is, well, multiple programs. You see on the bottom there, we have the 3 different main funding streams that we operated with. Our SRA program that was awarded through CAL Fire Prevention grants, our U.S. Forest Service program that we obviously worked with the U.S. Forest Service with, and California Disaster Assistance Act, which we worked through the Office of Emergency Services. You can see over the last few years, the total money spent towards this effort, rounded, was $7.5 million. This all boiled down to about $421 per tree. And anybody that has gone out to try and do some private work on their own property knows that this is a very low price. And that included all things from administration to taking out the tree to marking to the wood yard that we stored the lumber at, briefly.
So can you go back a slide?
Absolutely.
Because I would argue that we actually are in the top spot because while we might not have gotten quite as many trees, it's my understanding that a number of the counties just knocked them down. We actually knocked them down, hauled them away, and then cleaned up the slash.
That is correct, and that's a very good point that the infrastructure that we have in Tuolumne County was such a big part of our success as well. The fact that we were able to have a place to bring the lumber and then use it in such an effective manner really played into a strength of this program.
Because I think that conversation is still ongoing about those trees that have just been knocked down and still are in place.
That is correct.
I would argue that doesn't clearly define the number one.
And that's an argument for, unfortunately, other counties probably, but that's an argument for a resurrection of the industry in this state, because a lot of the reason they just knocked them down is they've got nowhere that they can economically take them.
Absolutely. We've talked to several counties in the area who experienced that exact problem. Be able to knock them down, but nowhere to take them. Okay. All right, so what we have here is a heat map of our county. And the darker the green, the more work that was conducted in that area in very brief terms. You can see our Twain Harte, Miwok Village areas, very concentrated. The bottom center would be our Groveland area. And then to the right of that would be up Evergreen Road out there in District 4. A good thing to note is that the markings here are not just showing where there are dead trees, but where there are dead trees that we had responsibility to take out. So the tree mortality did create almost a belt going down the foothills of California. But you can see the areas in which we treated almost a large portion of which were county maintained, but then of course through the SRA program were also private properties and private roads as well. And then up in the corner, you'll see that we treated over 1,500 individual parcels throughout the county. So some of the major accomplishments that we felt came from this program is first and foremost, 0 fatalities or major injuries of our workers throughout the program. Those contracted with the county specifically. Of course, the purpose of the program to mitigate the hazards along hundreds of miles of our roadways, around residences, around schools, airports, public infrastructure, private residences, all the above. 150,000 tons of biomass sent to Ultrapower for power generation. I was trying to figure out, I got that number this morning, I was trying to figure out what that equates to in power. It seems very subjective depending on the capabilities and how wet it is. And the things I found on Wikipedia probably aren't worth quoting, but it's a lot of power. And then, of course, it has strengthened our partnerships with federal, state, local, and tribal agencies, and those will continue to move forward with us as we grasp problems moving and opportunities moving forward. A quick look ahead. Kind of the way the state's going and the monies and our priorities are looking is it's going away from tree mortality and approaching wildfire as a broader and forest health type subject. And as your board knows, this board proclaimed a local state of emergency due to the threat of wildfire. That will be coming back to your board here in the next couple of weeks, as that will need to be either updated within the 60-day period or said that the threat is no longer there. We are also implementing a program to assist seniors with defensible space clearing. There were 5 communities initially identified as a pilot program within each district, 1 per district. And here recently, we just issued a request for proposal for a project manager for that program to get that up and running. We're also awaiting a potential award. We submitted under the last California Climate Initiative grant program to implement a project that would allow us to do a green waste pickup. I believe we'll be hearing back on that in August? March. Oh, that's much sooner. Thank you. We're going to continue with our education outreach program under the NFPA's FireWise program and continue and enhance our vegetation management program along county roadsides. We just had a modification approved that would allow us to work along any county-maintained road in the county, giving us the flexibility to move where the need is the most dire. And of course, we'll be working with our county roads to make that assessment. And then, of course, we're going to continue to coordinate with our federal, state, local, and tribal partners. So at this point, I think if you're ready, I'd like to hand it over to Mike a little bit and kind of give him a chance to talk about this program and his thoughts.
Okay, well, you've covered the achievements, I think, quite well. There are a couple things I want to say for sure. First of all, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to work on this project. And I want to thank you on behalf of our team, who I'm going to introduce in just a minute, we've got the backbone of this team here sitting in the audience that made all this work, and I'm going to introduce them in a minute. But I really want to thank you all for not micromanaging this program, for trusting us to get the job done, for making the contracts simple. They were very accurate. Sarah, I know you had your hand on that, but they were easy. Everything was easy to work with, and I've seen what other counties are doing and what they're working with, and the boards they're working with, and it's much tougher. You folks are to be commended for telling us, here's what we want done, and then kind of getting out of the way, and that's really appreciated. I know we had to earn that, and I think we did. There's a lot of folks that ought to be commended and thanked along the way, but I'll tell you the backbone of this program really rested with, there's 4 people in the back behind me here I want to just introduce, and maybe we can give them a round of applause. I wish this place was full of people because they deserve a big round of applause, but Jason mentioned most of the trees got marked by, really actually by 3 fellows here that worked with us. They're local foresters. They did a fantastic job marking all this timber. They not only had to mark it, they had to upload it into the GIS system. They braved all the things in the woods you brave, poison oak and bees and dogs and snakes and that kind of thing, and rough terrain, and they always did it without raining half the time, it seemed like, without any complaints. And I'm going to introduce these fellows. If you just don't mind, well, you don't need to stand up. You can just wave, but you can stand up if you want. Chris Trott and Glenn Gottshaw and Dave Horak were the foresters that got all this marking done, and I want to give them a round of applause and thank you from everybody. And then there's a young lady here that I know quite well. I'm married to her, and she deserves also a lot of credit. She approved every single invoice that went through this program from the county contractors and from the tree markers, fielded hundreds of phone calls from residents that wanted to know what was going on, did countless things that I don't know about, and still somehow managed to help run our logging business and cook dinner and wash my jeans. I don't know, but that's Vicki, and I'd like to give her a round of applause too for just some really good work. Okay. Let's see. I know let's see what else I got. I won't say a whole lot more, but I think I got to tell you real quick how this started. It's kind of interesting. I was reflecting on it because I had a talk with Tracy and Craig Pedro in their office one time, and they were telling me a little bit about what they needed and asking me if I would be interested in doing it. And I said, well, I think so. Maybe I'll think about it a little bit. And we talked a little bit more. And then Vicki and I were on our way to Reno to a logging conference, and Ethan Billigmeyer, who I think all of you remember, really good analyst here, called me and said, hey, we get some funding. We want to put this program together. We need to get the woodyard put together. We need to get a team of people put together, some contracts and this and that. And I said, okay, well, when we get back, we'll see if we can work on that. I think we can do that. And he says, no, we need that by tomorrow morning. And I'm like, Ethan, really? Yeah. I said, we're on our way to no, we need it tomorrow morning. So Vicki made that all happen. I don't know how she did it. I had a little input, but that's how the whole thing started. But we worked with a bunch of great folks in this community, and you know who they are, but Tracy Riggs is she had a lot of hats on, but she was the director of Offices of Emergency Services. And Tracy put a task force together that was fantastic. And without her leadership, this would not have happened like it did. You just did a super, super job, and you can't have enough thanks from this county. This is an example of tax dollars so well spent. People got a return on their money from this. These are tax dollars coming back from the state through the county. A lot of times our tax dollars, we don't know where they go. This went back to people's homes, and it saved a lot of homes. But Tracy did a lot of great upfront work to get this going. And partners, PG&E, CAL FIRE, I can't say enough about CAL FIRE. Adam Freeze and Jeff Sanders, absolutely outstanding to work with. I'll probably forget, I'm not going to say a whole bunch of them here, but Forest Service, fantastic. Caltrans, we worked with TUD, the Miwok tribe, and then Jason mentioned Duke York, who helped get this whole thing started by surveying the roads, and just a great team effort. And this guy up here wasn't a supervisor at the time, but he was right in the middle of it with us, and Ryan, you did a super job keeping us going and get all those contracts out. Appreciate that a lot.
I learned from the best.
Yeah. Okay, well, that wasn't me. He learned from somebody. That's good.
I learned a lot from you.
Yeah, well, we learned together. It was really good. And as Jason mentioned, I think maybe the final thing I'll say is we were able to do this and get the trees removed, as Supervisor Brennan said, because we have markets. And we have got to continue to protect these markets. We've got to keep these markets viable, because this will not be our last emergency by any means. We're going to have more fires. We'll have more mortality. South of us, it's a sad scene looking around, and they were just dropped and left, and they're going to burn someday in a fire. And ours did burn in the Ultra Power plant. We made power out of ours. We made enough to run that plant for about 8 or 9 months just on what we brought in through tree mortality. So that's a fantastic accomplishment. We've got to keep these timber markets viable, because they're there when we need them for emergencies, as well as just day-to-day products. So I think that's enough for me. But I'm going to look to Tracy. You started this, and good job. Good job getting it going. And thank you all for staying out of our way, giving us what we needed, but you let us do our work, and I think it went pretty well. So thanks.
So I guess I'll go to public comment next. Public comment, come on up to the podium, please.
I just want to thank Madeline and the GIS department. What we did is fun out there, especially when you have a good program where you can put them in and it goes right back. So anyway, we couldn't have done this without you.
Yeah. Dave, thanks for doing that, because I was kind of remiss I kind of included the whole county, but this staff right here, Liz, Madeline, you all know who makes it happen here. You've got the best. These folks are just outstanding. Again, tax dollars at work really well with your staff. And
So
good
is there
job,
any
all of
other
you. Yeah.
public comment? Because I know the board probably has a few comments.
Well, I would just like to point out for all the people who think that you don't know what you're doing and you're stupid and incompetent, where's the media? And where's all those people that come here bitching and complaining all the time? Because I think I'm probably the only person who hasn't been involved. Wow.
But Carol, we're thankful that you'll spread the good word. So I'll start to my left. Supervisor?
Yeah, well, Mike, you mentioned that, we just kind of got out of the way and let you guys do it. Well, that's what you do when you have good people. I mean, that's the choice of you accepting the job. You probably felt you were forced into taking it. Tracy probably strong-armed you and said, "Hey, you got to do that." But no, I'm proud of county staff for what they do. They work hard. We try to spend our tax dollars wise, and anytime you have the opportunity to get that money back, it's really good. So thank all of you for all the work that you did. I mean, tremendous job. And I know we're going to have more to do, but we got the program, we got the model, and we can just bring it up anytime we want. So thank you.
So, echo all of that. Obviously, thanks to the staff. Thanks to all the community workers that were part of this incredible success story. I was speaking at lunch today, and I was talking about one of the two really wonderful things about being a supervisor in Tuolumne County is, one, we've got a board that works very well together, and it makes getting stuff done a lot easier than it is in other counties. And for someone that travels around the state and sees other boards, I'm constantly getting asked, how do you guys do that? And but the other thing that is, I think, even more incredible is this county and how we solve problems like this. And this is probably the prima facie example that is out there right now. We got more money than anybody but Fresno County, I think. Maybe we were third, I don't remember. But we got a lot of money. That took a lot of hard work. But we didn't just go get the money. We're the only people right now that have finished the program. We got the job done. And when I say we, it is not the five of us up here. It's not the five of us up here and the county staff. It's the five of us up here, the county staff, and the community working together. People like Mike, I know you don't like to be the star of the show, but you really were. And for you to step up and lead this effort and do it so well. You thanked us for getting out of your way. I'll stay out of your way any day of the week, okay? And all the other people that were involved, and I know there were a lot of people that aren't here in this room today, but Tuolumne County gets the job done. And so thank you to everybody for all of it.
Supervisor.
Oh my gosh, feels like a high school reunion. Yeah, I did have a small role to play in tree mortality, but the people that are here in the audience today are the ones that made it successful. Mike, you did a great job listing everybody and their involvement. It would take all day thanking everybody that had a part to play in this. I want to start by thanking you, Mike. I've gotten to know a lot of people in the forestry management field over the years, and I don't know anybody else that would have been as successful in their role as you have. I really think, the number I look at is 0 fatalities, 0 major injuries. And Mike, you are the reason for that. Just looking at some of the tragedies we've seen elsewhere, we avoided that because this program was run very well. And you mentioned Madeline. I wanted to call her out specifically, Madeline and Diana. Truly revolutionary use of GIS tools to inform these projects. And you guys there in the back, the people that mark the trees, I was sitting in an office staring at little dots on a map, and I'd say, hey, go out to this property, and not knowing that it was in the middle of a big grove of poison oak and manzanita. So really, truly doing hard work. And I just wanted to relay one story about and Mike might remember this, the impact that this project had. I think sitting here now, looking back on the success of it, it's easy to forget that when tree mortality began, there was real fear and really panic in the community about watching millions upon millions of trees die within a matter of months. And the county really stepped up with these partnerships to address it. And one instance in particular, a woman called me and said that she had, more than a dozen trees, and this was in the Twain Hart, Brentwood Park area, dozens of trees that were dead on her property. And just by sheer bad luck, she was excluded from a particular project that we had outlined for this area. And so she was frantic. Her neighbor was threatening a lawsuit because she had all these dead trees. And so I called up Mike and I said, Mike, is there anything we can do about this? And he said, well, let me see. And so Mike and Chris personally went out to our property, included them in the project, marked the trees, and I was able to call her back and tell her that she would be able to benefit from this public program. And she broke down in tears on the phone. And so it was really gratifying to be able to help our community in a concrete way and be a leader for this. Really, Tracy, your leadership on this was essential, having the support and the know-how and the, let's say, persistence with some of our partners at the state and federal level. Really, you kept it going and made sure it worked. And lastly, I want to thank the members of the board, all 5 members of the board at the time that this began, put county money, invested it, and took a risk to get this program started. And it took a great deal of foresight and courage to do that. And that initial investment paid off so many dividends with federal matching money, state monies, and we're seeing the result of that today. So I want to thank my members of the board that were on the board at that time.
So I'm going to step just a little bit farther back in time. And actually, Jason, you mentioned the emergency declaration, because that's really what this started with, was a vision and a road trip to Sacramento with Supervisor Hanfield, myself, Mike. I was trying to remember who else joined us in that meeting with, he's now Secretary Crowfoot, but he was the aide to the governor. And it was that pitch on that day where we saw a real recognition that we had to do something. And Tuolumne County led the effort in that. And we've talked about that on numerous occasions and the other tools that we've implemented to get this done. And I agree with absolutely everything that has been said. It was done for so many reasons, and they have all been articulated. But what I want to focus on now is the future. And because this has morphed. Tree mortality has morphed at the state level, and it is now forest resiliency. And it was interesting because as it's morphing, last week, Ms. Peterson and I were at a meeting in Sacramento, and they told counties what they needed to do, and they highlighted 3 things. And they said you need to have a collaborative that is working across jurisdictional boundaries. They said that you needed to have, by jurisdictional boundaries, again, a YSS-type collaborative. You need a regional collaborative with multiple counties. And then you need a collaborative at the county level with the different agencies that are assisting in this effort. And I'll say, Liz and I were just like, here, because you know what? We have all three of those pieces in place. We are moving into the future. We're moving into the next phase. And when I look out at the group that was so instrumental in this, you are all involved in one way or another in one of those collaboratives that are going to make the next phase of this successful. And so don't think you're going anywhere. You're not. We've got you. But we should be so proud of what we do in Tuolumne County because we lead on this virtually at every level. We're going to be going back and we're going to say, Governor, we've already done our LIDAR, so the money that you're giving to other counties, you're going to give it to Tuolumne County so we can take the next step in what we need to do. Again, now it's about the future. There is still a lot of work to be done. And so I thank you for all of your previous endeavors, but I remind you, you're not going anywhere. So with that, I thank you. I thank you so much. Again, this is the example statewide on every level of how collaboration works, how cooperation works, and how we actually make a difference and get things done. So I'm so proud to get to represent Tuolumne County. And this is, again, kudos to all of you. So with that, we have had public comment. And this was an information report only. No action needs to be taken. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we'll take just a couple of minutes to set up for the next presentation. 5 minutes? Okay. 5 minutes to set up for the next presentation.
Thanks, Mike.
Oh, okay. Well, I said 5 minutes. I want to. What?
Is a presentation on the high performance organization training.
Ms. Riggs.
Okay, thank you so much. Tracy Riggs, County Administrator's Office. You know, it's all perfect timing. This is, I think, the best timing for this item today to come forward was right after what we just did. And the reason is we're talking about the high performance organization, and what the high performance organization does is really focus on relationships, building those relationships, reminding people the value that they bring to the organization at all levels of the organization. And what we just saw here was a myriad of different types of organizations, whether those were private, they were internal with our own different agencies. So what we did do last week, we had a 3-day training, and it was based on University of Virginia's Senior Executive Institute, or LEAD, both of which are professional leadership organizations and training. And this started for me when I went back to University of Virginia in July of 2018. And it was actually right after your board, or the board at that time, had come out and announced that, that I had been selected to come in as a CAO behind Craig Pedro. And it was Craig who had encouraged me to seek a scholarship with the County Association of County Executives, which is CASE, is the acronym for that. And I actually got a scholarship that paid 100% of my 2 weeks of leadership training back in University of Virginia. And as much as at first I didn't want to go away, I'd never been away from my family for that long in the years I've been married, it really was an incredible training. And it talks about forming those relationships and becoming vulnerable for people so that they can identify with you, which then helps to form trust. So right after I got back, we then had some other of our executive staff on the 4th floor who went either to a 1-week or 2-week training last year. And then we began working with your board as well as with the university to see could we bring their training out here, as they have a very intense 3-day training as opposed to the 7 or 14 days. So last week we had that training. There were over 40 of us in the room. So it was for department heads, assistant department heads, deputy directors, and then other levels of management within each of the agencies. And it was an incredible time. I have to tell you, all of them were engaged. And over on my left side here are some of the Post-its that we have from our time together with our instructor. And he took us through a lot of different forms of leadership, but we talk about how we first started way back when, which are, it's Likert, who had come up with some different levels of organizational philosophies. And we talk about the different systems. So system 1, when it really was top-down driven, there was no value placed on employees, and that was really back during our industrial age. We then get to a system 2, which takes us to something better than system 1. There was a time when employers started offering benefits, and they started recognizing the need that they had for good employees. And then from there, we started going into system 3 and system 4, which is the preferred model of leadership within our organizations. System 3 is consultative, and system 4 is participative. And as your board is aware, one of my passions is workplace culture, and all of this plays right into our workplace culture. It's about focusing on what does every single individual within our organization bring to the table, and that each one of them have a value. And it takes leadership into every level of the organization, meaning it's no longer driven by a title, but it's driven by the person. And the goal in that is that once they realize that every single individual from whichever position that you may work has a value to the organization as a larger whole, we start moving towards a common goal. And that is where we start seeing our employees becoming more engaged. We talked about engaged employees. How many do we think are engaged? How many are not engaged? And then how many are actively disengaged? And it was an interesting conversation. And the goal of that being identifying those who are actively disengaged or not engaged, and how can we help to bring them and not make them, but help bring them along to become engaged employees. The reason engaged employees are so important is it is through that engagement that they begin participating in the organization. They begin working towards a common goal, which creates better productivity, which then equates to gold standard service. And that's our goal here. So on the dais, you guys have a copy of the memo that I had sent you last night. But the other thing you have, if you really want to know what is the high performance organization, on the dais you have one of these. And I got to tell you, when they hand this out, it kind of makes your eyes cross, right? And on the back, there's a whole lot more information. We went through every single piece of both sides of this large handout. And not only that, we break into teams. One of the things that the university does so well once they provide this training is they really push it back onto the participants and say, and ask you, what is your role in making this happen? And what are you going to do when you go back to your organization to make it come to light? And so this, during those 3 days, it was great. We did get a larger class size than what they normally allow. And they did that because our office on the 4th floor, those of us who have attended, wanted to be able to participate with all of our department heads who are just seeing this for the first time. And I know for myself, sometimes just standing in the back of the room and watching the participation, looking and watching everyone who was actively engaged and writing in the journals that had been provided to them, everyone was eating this up. And this was exactly what we want to see our organization become. There's some other types of teams. So you've heard me talk about teams, which is what we just saw in this previous item. It's about teamwork. It's about working together, bringing more brains than just one, because we can do so much more together than we can do individually. And so with this, we talk about now creating this parallel organization. We know we always have the hierarchy, but you create this parallel organization, and there is a, it's right here, actually, this very first one. And essentially you take, when you move to the right where the parallel is, you create these working teams. And within those working teams, there's no longer a title in that. Everyone has equal say and equal influence as they work towards whatever task they've been given. Then what happens, they bring that back into the hierarchy so that then we are able to work on it and then if needed, bring it up through the hierarchy to the board. When we went through this, he did, and we do have it. So you may see over here in the middle on the bottom, there is this, this Post-it there that looks like a graph, and it has this big red line. And you may remember I spoke about Leichert's philosophies for your leadership in the organization. So system one being where we really did not treat our employees well during the Industrial Revolution area, and then where we came into the participative. Well, what you're seeing right there is there's the system 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that red line in the middle, there was something that everyone who participated, we answered a series of questions. Then they came back in the next morning and everyone put a tick mark where their answer was for that particular question. And then once you do that, you start looking at where are most of them falling. Well, what we're seeing is that we are at the very low end of a 3, if not, the high end of a 2 or low end of a 3 in the way that our department heads feel we are managing and leading within our organization. My goal would be to see us move between the 3 and 4, and that's where the healthy, productive types of work comes out of. That's where your employees feel valued. That's when they know their value to the organization, and we begin doing this participative leadership at all levels. More than anything, what I wanted to share with your board today was the excitement that we felt in the room that day with our department heads. Many of you stopped by, you sat in the back, you were able to watch, you were able to listen, you were able to see the engagement. I can't tell you, I don't think that there was one individual who participated that day who did not come up to me either that one of those 3 days, catch me on Friday, swing by my office, send me a text, send me an email, leave me a voicemail of how thankful they were for this leadership opportunity. Of all of those department heads, none of them, now we do have a lot of new department heads, but no one could remember a time in which all of the department heads came together to do a common leadership training. And that's what this provided. It also helps for times where, we don't get to sit at a table with one of our meaning, those in my office, I didn't get to sit with anyone in my staff. I was told to go find someone else that I don't normally work with. And that also helps us to begin breaking down those barriers and those silos and to increase our communication. What I've had are several requests from department heads. They'd like to bring this back. They would like to see more of their employees who expressed their disappointment that they were not able to attend. They would like to attend. So we are working to get the cost of what that would be to come back, remembering that this is normally about a 36-person class. We were closer to 45 to 50 at times with ours. So we would probably need more than one, but we have some other opportunities where it would not just be borne by the general fund. We have the Human Services Agency and both Public Works who really would like to see this come back. And with that being said, I also wanted to have the opportunity for anyone looking to see if there's anyone here who would like to come up and just speak to what it meant to have this training. What did they like most about it? When we went back, they have you give your aha moments. And I know for me, when I was back a year and a half ago, I had 2 aha moments. One of them was I didn't know that working in teams was the right way to go. I just know that out of drive for necessity, when I first came into behavioral health and became the director, honestly, I didn't know what the heck I was doing over there. I was an accountant, and I was a tax preparer, and I had to ask for help, and I did. And we did incredible things with behavioral health that would not have happened had not everyone come to the table with that willingness to help. We saw it again when I came over here, worked in drought, worked in tree mortality, and many other projects. The second one is because I'm not afraid to ask for help and I'm a good facilitator, that is what has helped me be successful in the past and our projects and our teams, because once we get in that group, everyone has that same mindset. So anyways, with that being said, I would like to invite anyone who'd like to share their experience with your board.
Good afternoon, Kanan Whitman, Assessor Recorder. I didn't realize that this was going to be on the agenda today, but I did want to go ahead and share my experience. It exceeded my expectations. I did have some reservations at first as far as setting aside 3 days for leadership training. But I am glad that I went, and this is absolutely something that I would like to open up to my entire staff. I've been to a lot of training, and a lot of kind of ones, they focus more like on self-improvement, like how you can become a better performer yourself, where this one kind of does, but where it really brings it in is more in a team-focused. How can we improve together as a team? And I found myself in that as I kind of put on that lens of improving more from a team-based kind of thought of improvement. I found myself realizing things that I could personally self-improve on because I was just looking at it through a different lens. And I found it really productive. And I told Tracy that I would be very supportive of bringing this back and really kind of opening it up as a way to kind of really change the way our work culture is, and just much more collaborative, much more teamwork oriented. And I think that there'd be a huge benefit in really pushing this forward amongst the entire county. And I think even as a community, it'd be great if there were even some districts that just wanted to send 1 or 2 people, or even some larger nonprofits in the county too. I think that they could all truly benefit, and even the county, I think, would benefit just through those relationships with this framework kind of in place.
My little book that we all wrote in on the last 3 days of last week. Rebecca Speedo, now Health and Human Services Agency. First of all, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to have this rich education. Our agency was one of I guess a few that were where I had staff literally upset that they weren't able to be there. I have about 30 people already wanting to sign up for the next class, so we already probably have 1 class that's full. But what I took away from this opportunity or this class was leadership at all levels. And that what that does for our agency is make sure, one, that everybody, I think Tracy was saying, everybody has a voice. Everybody is learning leadership skills, because why wait till there's a vacancy to start looking for your succession planning? Look for it now, and we can look for it at an office assistant all the way to an assistant human services agency. So I really think that when we go, when we embrace the high-performance organization, we are building our leaders now, and we're building our leaders for the future. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Liz Peterson, County Administrator's Office. I was fortunate to go back to Virginia to the LEAD conference, which is like a 7-day, this with lots of other things. But so I was fortunate to be able to sit in on this to participate, but really to participate with the rest of our staff who hadn't gone through this type of thing before. So anyways, it was really exciting. A couple takeaways for me from this time that were different from when I was back in Virginia. We talked a lot about the 5 functions of leadership, and like Rebecca mentioned, leadership happens at all levels of the organization. Everybody should be expected to be conducting some type of leadership work. One of the 5 functions of leadership is that your vision and values are implemented through strategy, structure, and systems. And when I think about takeaways, we had a little brainstorm session at the very end of the last day with some of our coworkers. And one of the things we talked about was the importance of bringing your board into this process. And in particular, that one, developing really specific vision and values. We talk a lot about your vision statement and your mission statement, but then moving to your values and then being able to implement those through strategy, structure, and systems. And I know that is on the horizon for your next board workshop, but that is something that we talked about as a group that it's going to be exciting, but we're going to need to work together on this because we really want to be strategic and focused in how we achieve your vision and values. And so it's going to need to be a collaborative educational effort, you could say. And I'm sure, your board, I'm sure, is open to that. And then one other piece that I wanted to mention is one of the Post-its here. This one. This one was a really big takeaway for me. So I don't know if I can do it justice, but I'll give it a whirl. So these are 4 different quadrants here. And the idea is that our work can be prioritized or can be placed into one of these quadrants. The piece here on the left is the significance of the product. So how significant of an effort is it, or how significant of work is it? Say the tree mortality presentation that we just heard, that was a very high significance because of the extreme health and safety concerns. But then moving this way, when are we going to experience the consequences? Again, with tree mortality, we were going to potentially experience those consequences immediately. But other items, we may not experience those consequences for many years down the road, depending. So we take all of our work and we put it into one of these 4 quadrants. The idea is that the quadrant 1, things that have big significance and we're going to experience those consequences right now, that's the stuff we really need to focus on. And then quadrant 2 is the things that we don't spend enough time focusing on that. But those are things that have really big significance, but we won't necessarily see the consequences for a long time down the road. I think in organizations, probably particularly government, have a hard time focusing on some of that work. We tend to instead focus on these quadrant 3 items, which are things that actually don't have that big of a significance, but we get the impression that the consequences are going to happen right now. But it doesn't really matter. And so the idea is, for me, my takeaway was, and then quadrant 4, of course, are things that don't matter and have no significance, so we're just wasting our time. We talked about like meetings, for example, not board meetings, but just in general, we have sort of, wasteful meetings sometimes. But this quadrant 3 work is something, for me personally, that I want to try to not do. Because if it doesn't have significance, then what's the point? Let's focus on the things that have high significance with significant amount of consequences, and then let's spend a majority of our time, 15 to 25% is what high-performing organizations do, spend their time focusing on things that are highly significant, but we won't see the consequences until down the road. So it takes some discipline to focus on those things, but that for me was a really big takeaway. So.
Can I comment on that? Because I think there's a lesson that wasn't necessarily clearly articulated. The problem is if you wait to do quadrant 2, it's going to be in quadrant 1 by the time you get to it. And then you're going to get the 90% solution because you don't have time to fix it. Yep. So
it's usually more expensive, too.
Exactly.
It's called kick the can.
Good afternoon, Leah Morales, Assistant to County Council. I just wanted to say that thank you for allowing me the opportunity to go to this training. Christina Cunha and I were the only non-department heads in attendance. But what I can tell you is that I feel very invigorated about this training. It's important that department heads listen to their staff. We all do have really good ideas, and I think it's important that our voices be heard. Thank you.
I sort of forced her to come up here, not really. Sarah Carrillo, County Council. I do also want to thank your board and Tracy for allowing me to have some of my staff present. I mean, ideally, I'd like to have them all go through the training because I think it's so important as we help implement your board's vision and goals, and along with the CAO's office. So I'm so glad I had 2 of my staff present. And I think for me, the most exciting thing, well, one is being reinvigorated or re-energized, right? Because this work can be really difficult work. So staff comes back feeling ready and more inspired. But then seeing like immediate discussions on Friday after the training about how they were going to already implement it. They're looking at it. They're thinking about it. So for me, that there's nothing more thrilling or exciting is their energy. So thank you.
Thank you.
So quadrant 2, that is where we should be doing strategy. That's where we start thinking, we know something's coming in 6 months, maybe even a year as we're looking forward. And that is actually, as Liz said, one of those areas that we tend to put off. And another example of the Q3 was emails. I mean, you know it, I know it. We all spend a ton of time because email and texting has become the new way of communication rather than more in-person communication. But it takes a lot of time, and those aren't always the most productive way for us to spend our day. So there's a couple things that came out of that, and I know you guys may probably have some comments. One of the things I've been waiting to implement until we did this training, there's a couple of different types of teams I wanted to put together, but I didn't want to do it until the department heads knew what I was talking about. That would help a little bit. It would otherwise have just been a few of us. So they have something called your executive leadership team, and that really is where your department heads come together and we talk about a leadership philosophy. Because while Craig Gerhardt, who was our facilitator, and for some of you guys were in there, he really was very complimentary of the work the board has already approved and implemented, our mission and vision and values statements, and then some of the other types of work we've been doing. But what we don't have is a leadership philosophy. You know, I've been talking about leadership at all levels, participative leadership, but that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing to everyone. So we will be working as a executive leadership team that will be separate from our regular department head meetings, where we begin working on that leadership philosophy, and we'll come and bring that back to the board. The other one is then each of them should have a department leadership team, and that's a time they spend in the Q2 as well. They start looking at strategy. They start planning for those things that are coming and really taking a look at what the type of work they're doing. And then finally, Budget Congress, and we don't have to call it that, but I really liked it. This is where you put your budget team together, and everyone leaves their departments behind. You walk in there as someone who is working for the common good and goal of the entire agency. So you no longer have, well, I need this and I need that, and you got that last year or the last 5 years. This is really about how do we work together to bring this organization to where we, as your board has pointed out for your mission and vision and value statements, that we should be taking it. And then finally, talking about, I've been, for me personally, talking about living with intent, but we should be also leading with intent. And I don't think that people always understand that a title is not what makes you a leader. The person is the leader. It's who they are. It's the integrity. It's the drive. It's the passion. And that's what makes someone a leader. And helping our staff at all levels, I don't care where someone is in the hierarchy, everyone has equal value within the organization. So that is, when I talk about workplace culture, that's where I'd like to see us go. We will continue to work towards that. This is the time when I get really, really excited. This kind of stuff, when we can make make a difference in the lives of our coworkers here internal to our organization, that only makes it better as we work with our other customers outside of the organization. So with that being said, you will see probably sometime in the near future, looking at a time that we can get additional trainings. We'll be working with the university for the cost, and then with departments on ways that we can help offset the costs related to those trainings. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Sounds like it was incredibly valuable. Supervisor.
Yeah, I had opportunity to sit in a little bit. I wish I would have spent more time. One of the sessions that I was at, they showed the video of the litter pickup crew and how they themselves developed a better system to doing the work. And I think that's just the key at bottom up. I mean, the people out there doing the work know most often what's needed, but we don't get that deep. Sometimes we don't get that information. The idea that Kanan mentioned, I think really has some merit as far as bringing our other partners in, the schools, the service districts, those type of organizations that we have to deal with all the time. If we could all get on the same page, just think how great it would be. But in order to do that, it's going to take some outreach. But just my observation, watching, listening to the facilitator, I think it was really money well spent. I mean, to me, it was very, very well done, and done in such a way that he was a pretty high pressure guy, but I don't think everybody felt the pressure. You know, I mean, he was driving all of this stuff home, but he was doing it in a way that I thought really was well done. So, you know, I'm not going to be here for about another 20 more board meetings, but I think there's some merit to even including board members into that. You know, whether you take the chairman or whoever, but I think that the board needs to understand the process too, and just sitting in there for a few hours gives you a little glimpse of it. But I don't mean send them to Virginia for 2 weeks, you know. But some more in-depth education of the board. I know everybody thinks that we know everything. You know, we're all powerful. We're us. Got all the answers. It doesn't work that way. You guys have the answers. But if we get all on the same page, I think it would really be beneficial for the organization.
I see a lot of familiar stuff up there. These kinds of training, and this is, I'm sure, excellent. Unfortunately, I was in Sacramento the 2 days that you would let me, I'll get to that in reports, but you'd let me come. But so I wasn't able to go, but the four quadrants being the most visible, but I see a bunch of other stuff up there too that I've seen before. These kinds of trainings are very important. And the truth is that, you know, people look to the board for leadership. They look to the CAO for leadership. They look to department heads for leadership. But unless you're the bottom person on the rung of the ladder, or the bottom rung of the ladder, and even then, but unless you're there, you're leading, okay, or you should be. And even if you're on the bottom rung, you ought to be learning how to lead. Leadership is something that needs to permeate throughout an organization. And it's that common vision of where that organization is going, and not just where we're going, but how are we going to get there? How do we get there? It's very, very, the how is very important, okay? It affects your retention. It affects your attraction. I'm blanking on who said it earlier today, I think. But why do we wait until we have a vacancy to figure out who we're going to put in? There we go. Okay. They were pointing at you. You know, we ought, for instance, we had a whole bunch of leaders in the county gone for 3 days last week. There should have been no doubt in anybody's mind who was running the store while they were gone. Okay? There should be somebody that steps in. If you get hit by a Mack truck going home tonight, somebody has to do your job tomorrow. If you're not training them how to do that job, then we need to be working towards that. So I'm getting distracted here by John's voicemail message. That's all right. That's okay. But this is essential. And as long as I'm on this board, I'll be more than happy to put resources to sprinkling this down as far as we can. It's very, very critical.
Yeah, and I've participated in a lot of trainings in government, in the private sector, some good, some not as good. And when I heard that many of our department heads and all the leaders, many of the leaders within the county organization were going to be sequestered away for 3 days, I was a little apprehensive, but I can tell you I have never heard such an immediate positive response about a training in any organization that I've been a part of. So, you know, and also I want to thank CAO Riggs for pulling it together. I mean, that to me, that was the real feat, was getting all those department heads in a room at the same time without it impacting county services. I don't know how you found a window to do that, but you did, and so hats off to you. I hear the message loud and clear from county staff that this is something that is valuable. It's something that they value and they find it useful. And if that's the message we're getting from staff, then we need to listen to it and find a way to make it work.
Yeah, so I watched, I think Supervisor Gray was there for part of the morning when I was there, and it was incredible to me to watch how, in the video they were sharing with the sanitation workers and how they took control of what they were doing and how they were looking to be leaders in driving solutions and getting a better work product done. And just watching the breakouts after that and watching our staff looking at how they were strategizing and talking to each other. And so I see tremendous value in this again, and actually agree with Kanan's comments about how can we find some opportunities with some of the other organizations that we work with. I think there would be value in that too. So I am definitely in support of finding a way to expand this to throughout the organization. And thank you, Tracy, for bringing this. It's again, you're moving us in a direction that it's going to bear great fruit. So really think this is good.
Just one more thing. I would be remiss, and I have been remiss because I didn't speak to this already, but both Christina and Alicia and several others, they're really the ones that pulled this together to make sure we had the binders with all of the curriculum in it. We had the books when we sat down. They helped with getting the room set up. They helped with getting the food because people were lucky to get 30 minutes for lunch. That included your time in line, your time you got to eat, maybe get to the restroom and get back to your workstation. And I obviously could not have made that happen. And without Christina and Alicia both making that happen, it really is, they're the ones that help so much with this. And of course, the department heads who organize their schedules in a way to ensure that there would be very little loss felt. And that's what the HPO model is all about, is when you have that hierarchy person who's not in the room, the organization continues to operate in a very high functioning way. And that's exactly what this is about.
So thank you. Is there any public comment? All right. Thank you very much. Will the clerk please read item 16. 15.
Reports.
I'll start. Actually, Ms. Carrillo.
No report.
This is going to go quickly. Basically, two things really. Last Wednesday and Thursday, I was in Sacramento for a California State Association of Counties resiliency meeting on Wednesday, and a California State Association of Counties board of directors meeting on Thursday. The resiliency meeting was very, very interesting, and there is a very cohesive statewide effort on resiliency to catastrophic events, and that includes sea level rise. It isn't just all about forest fires and stuff like that, but any potential resiliency to any potential disaster, future disaster, and it's a very interesting program. I'm not going to go into it in great detail. The Board of Directors meeting, also pretty much the standard stuff that CSAC's been working on. I'm not going to go into any of that. On Friday, I actually chaired the ATCA Finance Committee meeting. That's Amador Tuolumne Community Action Agency Finance Committee meeting. And then also attended after that the Amador Tuolumne County Action Agency Board of Directors meeting. And other than that, I have nothing else to report.
Ms. Riggs. Supervisor Campbell.
So I was a member of attended the Tuolumne County Transportation Council, the Solid Waste Committee. Also attended the Ridgewood General meeting that they have quarterly with Supervisor Brennan. I also had the opportunity to visit with fine people at the Social Services and Public Health Department during their open house. Amazing number of services provided there and resources for the community. Anything from early childhood illnesses and screening to vaccinations to elder care and finding food assistance and resources for groceries and home care. So just a lot of really great people there working really hard in the community, and it's probably our biggest direct contact with the population of Tuolumne County is through social services and public health. So I just wanted to thank the folks there for opening up and inviting the public to attend and see everything that they do. And then lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about, I visited the Family Learning Center on Bluebell Road. I'm ashamed to say it was actually the first time I've been to that center. It's operated by ATCA with coordination with the county. And it's truly amazing the child care services that are provided there. They have preschool, they have special needs programs, and they have a waiting list that is a mile long because we lack, in a lot of ways, we lack a lot of child care opportunities in this county. And in talking with Kristen and Patty are the two ladies that run that place, and in talking with them, a lot of the standards for income that are set to get those services, they're set by the federal and state guidelines. And so at the current rate, if you have a two-household income, both parents earning minimum wage with 2 kids, you make too much money to qualify to have your kids use the facilities at the Learning Center. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how out of whack the guidelines are for that. And yet even with that high bar for entrance, there's still a waiting list, and as there are for many other things. So as we talk about board priorities and our legislative agenda, that's one of the things I'd like to bring up at that time, getting some traction on raising that threshold, making it easier for lower income households of working families to be able to avail themselves of those services and hopefully expand them if we can find money in those areas. It's something that I think our county needs, and it's important. And so that will be the end of my report.
So I've already referenced a number of the meetings that I've been attending in the last couple of weeks, and so the one that I'd like to really focus on was the Area 12 meeting that we had on February, it was on the 6th, and the Agency on Aging will be updating their area plan. They have to do that every 4 years. And one of the pieces that came out as they're starting the work on that was the recognition that 50% of our seniors are classified as geographically isolated. And that was a little bit frightening to me when I thought about it, because it's not just when we talk about fire resiliency, it's also around floods. It's around virtually every disaster we have out there. And so we're going to be looking at that piece, I think, very closely and really trying to focus in on what that means, and especially with regards to transportation and some of those other services that would be critical for those folks. And I will be encouraging and working with a number of sites where seniors meet to make sure that they are giving input into the process as we work through the area plan. So I will update that as we move along. You have a report.
I also had the privilege of going to the HPO training, and I am super excited about the workplace culture and the change. And I've been here for a long time, and not a lot has changed, and a lot has changed in the last 6 months, and I feel like there's going to be some really amazing changes coming up, and I'm really excited about it. The other thing is that I've been working with Granicus and Peak. We're launching our first Peak agenda next meeting, which is March 3rd, and you're really not going to feel anything or notice any difference, but that's going to be happening. So I'm excited about that. Another change. Thanks. That's
All
it.
right. Thank you. With that, the meeting is adjourned.